Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Problem Solver Politics live stream. Today, we're going to talk about the values and merits of turning the United States of America into a constitutional monarchy. Here to expound on such details. Oh, we're not?
No, we're not.
Oh, man. I thought that's what we were into lately, man.
No, the other stuff we were talking about at the beginning of the show, when I was like, oh, we're going to talk about this today. That's what we're actually going to talk about.
All right. Well, Cody, take it away. Tell us what's up, man.
That's an empty couch. There we go. Hello and welcome, everybody. We are indeed back. Sorry we were gone for the past couple of weeks. It's actually been a little bit of a while since we have been here. We actually both got coronavirus, but we both isolated. I did the full 2 weeks at home around nobody, which sucked. But because of that, I am here, and we are going to be talking today. So today, what we're going to be talking about, sorry, it's been a little while. I'm trying to find my
But isn't that crazy? We got the Rona, dude.
Here we go. My overlay. I was trying to find my overlay. I couldn't. But I don't know, man. It's not that crazy. We live in Los Angeles County, and almost everybody in Los Angeles County somehow came down with coronavirus in the past short period of time. But we're going to talk about some of the news that has happened over that. And one big news thing. Let me find it. Oh, it actually was on my sorry about that, guy. Look at this. We're all over the place coming back. I didn't realize my Miami Vice tab was the one that had all of my news articles I wanted to show you guys. Anyway, let's start from the top. So, something that's been going on for the past few... Honestly, this started at the beginning of this year. It's been going on for about a year now. Andrew Yang declared that Andrew Yang is officially now filed to run to be the mayor of New York City. On top of filing to run, he's done all of the unofficial stuff. Like, he's met with Al Sharpton and he's met with everyone else, and he's laid the groundwork for what you have to do to be the mayor or run for mayor of New York City.
I saw that picture of him with Al Sharpton. I just thought, don't debase yourself. Is really Al Sharpton still a gatekeeper? Is that where we still are?
Apparently in New York, yeah. It's just one of those is what it is things, right? It's like not about what you think about the guy, just is what it is. Like, you got to work with him if you want to get elected. So, I saw one thing I thought was pretty funny. So they mentioned that he filed to run. Andrew Yang, the tech entrepreneur who rose to national prominence as the 2020 Democratic candidate for president, has filed paperwork to run for mayor of New York City. The move sets him up to join a crowded Democratic race just 6 months before a primary will likely determine the next one. But mayor, a couple of weird things, still up in the air somehow. This should be the first time the mayor of New York City is elected using ranked choice voting. Just to add another kind of wrinkle or weird layer to this thing with Yang running for the first time. On top of that, there are some internal battles within New York City's little politics community over if they should or shouldn't have ranked choice. Even though people voted for it, maybe we shouldn't do it because X, Y, and Z. A lot of it ends up being the really stupid people are too dumb to follow multiple candidates is more or less the argument they make. What if people don't know more than one candidate? Just crazy stuff like that. But looks like it's going to be weird. We'll be talking a lot more about the kind of nuts and bolts of it. One thing I thought was funny, I saw someone on Twitter, they're like, calm down, Yang Gang. He's only filed. It's just a formality. It's like, what's a formality for people running for mayor? Like, it isn't a formality for me. Not a formality for just anyone who lives in New York City to file to run. Yeah. Like, generally, that's the point where, like, they have an intention to run. And it's actually interesting, if you look at the New York Times, it goes back to March of 2020.
Yeah.
Them saying Yang is considering. I remember as soon as he dropped out of the race, one of the very first rumors was he's going to run for mayor of New York City. And now it appears it is indeed here. And I think I'll have to pull it back up. I unfortunately accidentally closed my tab and love this. Paperwork does not guarantee that Yang is running. And he so far has no campaign contributions. A source close to Yang told CBS News these steps are just procedural. Again, they're procedural for people who will run for mayor or not, I guess, but that's just the classic downplaying.
Well, actually, to say he has no campaign contributions, I think that's actually a misstep because he can roll over.
Previous, but also remember
previous.
Any money pledged to be like he can go out there and basically solicit donations without getting them before running.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of shenanigans that go on. There's a lot of reasons why people have these exploratory committees for a while, or people just put them out there because it benefits you. It benefits you to play your cards a little bit close and not just say, I will run for the mayor. People who do that are generally nobodies who need attention. Yeah. Andrew Yang, I can pull up the polls. This is the weird thing I kind of want to get into the next part about Andrew Yang running for mayor. Okay. Andrew Yang, tell you what, in chat, first person to mention another person running for mayor of New York City, and there's like 16 of them. It shouldn't be that hard. Let me know. None of them are as famous as Andrew Yang. Granted, we all kind of know Andrew Yang, but still, he's the most famous person running for mayor of New York City nationally. Might not matter in New York City, but I have to imagine it goes over a little bit of the same, right? My point being is, he's leading in the polls right now. I'll see if I can pull him up. Andrew Yang's leading in the polls. I believe the betting markets have him as a betting favorite. All of this stuff.
Yeah.
But what's interesting about that is, in a way, is that not like the highest pressure position to be in? You're the front runner. You basically should win.
Yeah, you
before
can't
you've
lose.
even filed.
Yeah.
What do you mean? You can't lose? You could lose massive.
Well,
Imagine
no,
if Andrew Yang runs for mayor.
When I say you can't lose, meaning like you better not, or else you're
in the literal
absolutely
sense.
screwed.
Yeah, like you better not lose. Yeah, because
there's no excuse at this point.
Exactly.
And you are leaving in shambles.
I mean, this is an article from The Hill from a few days ago. This is one of many. I mean, check this out. Poll finds Andrew Yang favored for New York City. I mean, it's almost like in like a sporting event, right? When you look at it, and it's like, I mean, it's even weirder than that, though, because he still technically could just not run. They mention here that former 2020 Democratic candidate Andrew Yang is currently among the favorites in the 2021 New York City mayoral race, even as the businessman has yet to officially announce his candidacy.
Well, here's what I'm really wondering, Cody, is, okay, well, first off, we're going to recognize a super chat. Thank you to Aurora Borealis, who says, Andrew Yang must win this. All hands on deck. Let's go, with 3 exclamation marks.
Let's go. I mean, he better win this. Yeah, I mean,
Now, here's what I worry about.
Here's the
evidenced
itself, you could see.
As you evidenced in the title of the stream, and the hit pieces are here. Andrew Yang is in the NYC mayoral race, and the hit pieces are here. I got to tell you, I lived in New York, and New York politics and power brokerage, man, you think the presidential election is tough? I would say I could see aspects of the New York City mayoral race as being more underhanded and vicious and willing to say, publish, accuse, infer, and or generally slander and malign. that threshold being a lot lower in the New York City race.
Well, so you want to hear something? Want to kind of take a trip down memory lane?
Okay, hit me.
Andrew Yang, during the primary, obviously was there wasn't a lot of controversy as far as about him. How he was covered was controversial, but there wasn't a lot of controversy. However, some of you guys might remember, I think I did make a reference to it in the title or thumbnail or something, I forgot what. But Andrew Yang, going back, this is February of this year, this is an article from Fox News saying that the New York Times runs a hit piece on Andrew Yang that includes complaints that he pressured employees to do karaoke. Do you remember this, right? The New York Times published what has been called a bizarre hit piece on Andrew Yang based on the experiences of some of his former employees, including one who complained the businessman pressured them into doing karaoke. Yang, who had recently laid off campaign staff after a poor showing on Monday's Iowa caucus. Thanks. I love partisan media. Just the Democrats sucks anyway. He's subject to a new report from the Times, which argued that scrutiny of his life before the novelty of his presidential bid got lost. New York Times, I don't know if the media is the enemy of the people. The New York Times is. New York Times hates everybody. And if somebody comes to the New York Times, they're like, I have a story that will just really dig it into someone. They're like, awesome, let's run it. I don't even care what it. Anyway, beyond that, the Times goes into detail about a 2015 essay Yang read about the market value of the female-directed horror film The Babadook and how women should have been given more opportunity in the industry. But when he spoke to his employees about it, female staffers exchanged glances, and some felt as if Yang were discovering sexism for the first time and explaining it to him. It's just kind of like, this was again, New York Times decided we have to go out there and write a Yang hit piece. This Yang guy's great traffic. How haven't we done a hit piece yet? I'm assuming was their line of thinking.
Yeah.
And they came out, and this is what they found. The fourth. It's funny. You can actually go on Twitter. Is it on? Do they have it here? You can actually go on Twitter and see the picture from 2016 on Yang's Twitter account of him doing karaoke. Like I don't know if it's the one in question where let's see if they mention here that. They mentioned the actual karaoke bit as an example, but yeah, here we go. For example, multiple employees were called up here. Oh, this was when he had a nonprofit pay for him, his family, and nanny to stay at an Airbnb in the Bay Area for about 10 weeks on the assumption he would procure, business stuff that didn't work out, more or less. Yeah. Former employees also alleged there was a bro culture problem under Yang's watch, and how this boorish behavior someone made him look and sound more like a fraternity brother. Blah, blah, blah. But a lot of this. Oh, yeah, I forget. Dude, I forgot this got printed. I'm sorry. I don't pay for the New York Times anymore, so they blocked me out, so I can't show you the actual article. I cannot believe this got printed. The Times included his nickname for his pectorals, which are Lex and Rex, and the gender-based discrimination harassment claims that surfaced from the Yang campaign fall. I love how they've, like, you know what? I don't know. Maybe Andrew Yang, there's some nefarious stuff behind Andrew Yang calling his pecs Lex and Rex. That sounds like a joke and something he doesn't do at all, and maybe he said once or twice, right?
And by the way, if anything makes modern feminism look like a bunch of dumb, stupid gender studies majors with nothing better to do that live in a spoiled world where everybody bends over backwards to try and make them happy, is the idea that the content of a hit piece can be a guy who was so horrible that he made you sing karaoke. And then calling your pecs Lex and Rex, and then having to complain that there's a bro culture. Dude, do you know how much worse it can be?
Okay, but hold on.
In any kind of business.
Beyond that, I want to move on to one thing, though. Because there's something else I want. That was a New York Times article, right?
Yeah.
Something else.
And I remember when we covered this fired for getting married thing.
Exactly, but something else. This was a testimony that she gave on pay equity to the New York City Commission on Gender Equity. And the story itself, even the way she describes it, it basically sounds like
he was super nice.
It sounds like she worked for him. She got pregnant. He basically paid her to go on maternity leave, which I don't think is like an evil thing at all. It's good, right?
Yeah.
Being a good, nice guy, helping her out.
Yeah.
Then when she was gone, basically things ran smoothly, and he was more like, okay, well, maybe like this doesn't work out so way. And it was awkward business thing. My only point is this. You brought it up. You said the idea that now the Yang's running for mayor of New York City, all hippies are going to come out. So I started going back and looking at him, and I remembered, I'm like, you know what, dude? A lot of the stuff that had come out during the campaign, it all already had come from New York City. All of it. Even when he was running for president of the United States, it was people giving, people reaching out to New York Times because he's from New York City, which I think is interesting kind of both ways.
Well, he's from upstate New York.
Yeah, but I mean, like, he worked in New York City. He did stuff there. But it's just funny to think about this. I honestly, I don't think of Yang as being that firmly connected to New York City. But in hindsight, every single time one of these hit piece scandals came out, it almost always, there was only one that wasn't. And we'll get to that one in a second. But it was almost always some goofy stuff about something from New York City, some New York City article. Because I think she originally wrote an op-ed in, like, Gothamite, like one of like the New York City
no, somebody was like advocating on her behalf, trying to basically smear Andrew Yang.
Yeah, like in those things.
And it was like this third story or this third person story where ultimately the person complained. Like I remember the title of it was like, I was his first experiment in UBI. He tried to pay me off,
Yeah, and I remember that now. Yeah.
And it just ended up being like this accusation that actually just made him look kind of like really nice. Like, yeah, he paid me for 9 months to like go have a baby.
And like, I like Andrew Yang. I'm sure you feel the same way. If some big scandal came out and turns out he did do a bunch of bad stuff or whatever, I mean, if there's evidence, I believe it and say it's bad, but it's always nonsense.
Well, everything he did was above what the law requires, and there was nothing to compare it to where you could say, oh, he was preferential towards a different woman and not me, or oh, he was hypocritical because he did it for her and not for me. No, it was this woman basically moaning that she was treated better than the law required.
It sounded like, not even that, better than the law required. It sounded more like this. Andrew Yang felt kind of bad about saying, we don't need you. We were able to replace you very easily.
Yeah.
So he's like, I'll pay you for a couple of years but we don't need you. I thought that. But again, I'm not here to defend it. I just thought it was funny thinking about, because this was the one that came out recently, New York Post. Andrew Yang's from 26th of December, a couple days ago. Andrew Yang's poor taste in pizza comes back to bite him.
Okay, but Cody, can I just pause you for...
I remember that. I want to read this article, but I remember this.
No, before you read it, I just want to point out, and Yang Gang, listen to me. And you need to apply this to Republicans as well. If the hit piece against you makes you think twice and wonder, is this an Onion article? Or is this a Babylon Bee headline? Then you've probably got a good candidate. You know what I'm saying? You probably got a good candidate if the hit piece is complaining about a bro culture where a guy has named his pecs Lex and Rex, and if worse comes to worse, he might force you to do karaoke.
The other funny thing about that, though,
he's got bad taste in pizza.
Like the Lex and Rex thing, it's not like Yang some like roid-head bodybuilder. Like I really refuse to believe he makes a big deal about like that is something.
That's not like me rocking in here.
That's something you just dump into an article as like an aside. Like, oh yeah, he sucks. By the way, it was just it felt like weird. My other point was, looking at these hit pieces, they've all been kind of goofy and stupid. This one was hilarious. Andrew Yang's poor taste in pizza comes back to bite him. All right, we'll check this out. Forget about it. By the way, this is written by John Levine. You're going to see this guy on Twitter all the time, and you'll recognize that name now. He's a Twitter troll guy, basically.
Jeez.
Anyway, you probably like what he says. Andrew Yang needs to find a better pizza place if he hopes to get elected mayor. Yang, who signaled his intention to run last week, is over the moon for the pies of an Iowa-based chain called Pizza Ranch. The Midwestern pretenders, who have 207 locations in 14 states, but none did. This one likes New York City people. Doesn't like talk about this stuff. But none of the Big Apple sell a taco pizza, a mac and cheese pizza, and a BLT, which comes with iceberg. It's just like literal smug New Yorker. Is he freaking kidding? I can hear the stupid New York radio voice. Who's this Yang guy? You know these pizza places. Anyway.
Yeah, is he freaking kidding me, huh? That ain't real pizza.
But this is the best thing. One of my favorite. One of my favorite things about Iowa: Pizza Ranch, unlimited pizza buffet known for their fried chicken. How has this not swept the nation? This is what I love. I want that pizza, he cooed to a row of several pizzas sitting under a buffet table heat lamp. He referred to himself as Pizza Yang. It's just like some of the stupidest stuff I've written has been about people writing mean stories about Andrew Yang. It's amounted to some of the dumbest things I've read. We'll go through this. And then they ask New Yorkers why it's bad pizza. That's the rest of the article. But this actually got published and it went out, and I thought it was hilarious. Obviously, it's not the biggest, most serious thing.
Okay, can I tell you though? I must say, I am all for strange pizzas. I've eaten everything from vegan pizzas to, like BLT pizzas and things like that. But a mac and cheese pizza, I don't know. I draw the line at that one, Cody.
You say that?
A mac and cheese pizza.
You see that? Dude,
it better look dang good.
Dude, they have them
and
all over
smell
the place.
amazing before I'm going to bite into a mac and cheese pizza.
They have them all over the place. And I'm trying to pull up an article I had forgotten about. God. Who wrote the most ridiculous Andrew Yang whipped cream hit piece? I thought it was Daily Mail or Daily Beast.
I just remember when we watched that incident, seeing Zach Grumman basically just like not knowing if he just witnessed the end of his career.
There's definitely you can see a little bit of inexperience on him. Where he's
you can look at his face
it's like
did it just end my campaign manager career?
Well, not even that. There's like that. There's that sense of, I think Breitbart had a funny one too. No, that's not the one. Where is I'm going to find one that was the dumbest one about this. But no, there was that moment, he had that look on his face of somebody where it's like, where you're in a situation.
You're like, I don't know if I need to say something right now.
No, but it's like, I know I have to do something, but I have no idea what the hell it is. And you just kind of freeze, you know what I mean? You're like, I'm the campaign manager, I got to do something. This is weird, but, and he just doesn't do anything. I actually can't find it. Dude, I swear to God, it was like Vox or Daily Beast or one of those magazines. I thought Breitbart wrote this really just oh, good Andrew Yang guy. What does he think he is doing this stuff? I forgot who it was, man. But yeah, it does seem to be just pure. And I guess I'll play the video for you guys. A Mashable article talking about it. And mostly it seems to be the things Yang gets gotten himself in trouble with has been pure silliness. But I do wonder, man, how goofy and weird and maybe fun is this Andrew Yang campaign going to be here, for mayor? Because, dude, they're already doing this pizza hit piece nonsense. I remember when this was a big deal to people that he sprayed whipped cream. This is the end. I will say that is the Andrew Yang campaign. A bunch of young men having
look, there it is. Yeah. There's Zach finally coming in.
Here's the funny part. You can tell right here when he's like frozen right there. This is the I gotta step in or I gotta do something. I gotta do something. He's like, look, he just like the and then this is the moment right here where you're like, okay, I was supposed to do something. I did nothing, but at least it's over, right?
Yeah.
And then Yang goes back to do it again.
All right. No.
And he's like, now I know what to do. What the? No, yeah, it's enough. Stop that. But it's been it really has been kind of weird. I don't want to say frivolous because some of the things people try to accuse him of are bad, but the accusations themselves are just goofy nonsense.
Sly Cactus brings up a good point, and he says, I want to hear Rex and Lex's side of the story for some real context. By the way, you want to know the number one way to find out if that's even true? Next time we see Andrew Yang, we just have to be, yo, how's Rex and Lex? Yeah. And like, if he says, what? Then we all know that it's just a bunch of BS.
You may remember this.
Uh-huh.
Dude, somebody did it. Of course. Okay. Somebody had to run this. But again, oh my God. Stupid pop-ups, but I wanted to show you guys, but I can't. I've reached my monthly article limit with the New Yorker. I'm not going to subscribe to it. Anyway, it was the New Yorker. But just that was the point I thought was interesting getting into this, is the fact that almost all of like the flame and hate against Yang originated from New York City when he was running for president. So it is going to be interesting now that he's running for mayor of New York City, where this is where New York City-based news outlets, people who live in New York City, were the ones that were kind of starting all of the. Whenever any of these weird something about Yang stories came up, it originated from somebody either living there, writing there, working for a company from New York City. So I don't think it's all going to be pizza. I think it's going to they're going to try to dig some more stuff up. The best they had dug up before, you brought up, the best thing they could dig up was that he laid a woman off and kept paying her salary because she seemed expendable. She even says, he basically kind of forced me to quit and then, paid me when I quit. So it was kind of hard for me to, do anything, right?
Yeah.
I'll try the incognito trick, dude. I swear to God, I'm, always pinned on him. And, dude, because here's the thing. Let me try it. I'm pretty sure I've this website, a couple of them, I have a VPN I used to use for this stuff, dude. Even the VPN doesn't work, but.
Really?
You know what?
Did it work, Cody?
You know it did.
Boom. Look at you, bro, Seth.
Oh, yeah. Thank you for that. I don't know. Sometimes I'm kind of just giving up on it because it so frequently does not work on some of these newer websites. Anyway, let's read this. February 7th, 2020. Who are Lex and Rex? Following. Damn. You can generally tell within a few words what kind of article it's going to be. Following his dismal finish in a chaotic. Okay, it's one of these. Again, this is from. Let me pull this down a little bit so you guys can see a little more what I'm talking about. This is.
Adam Duffy literally writes at the New York Times that they're typed to write a hit piece on Santa. And you could pretty much say the same thing about the Atlantic and New York
They're like the Philadelphia of journalism, New York Times. This is they'll just boo you and throw batteries at you and say awful things about you, regardless of who you are. Or Philadelphia sports fans is what I mean.
Yeah.
Anyway, Andrew Yang fired dozens of his campaign staff members, including his national policy and policy directors. That's generally what you do when you're wanting your campaign down. Two of his staffers, however, appear to remain secure in their positions close to the businessman. His pectoral muscles, Lex and Rex. It's from a year ago, by the way, guys. It's from a year ago. It's the kind of stuff that's been coming. Again, it's always been coming out of New York City and New York writers. So I have to imagine it's not just going to be pizza. It's going to be crazy and goofy. That's why I thought we'd talk about this a little bit today. It's a short little thing, but again, I have to imagine Andrew Yang, I mean, when you probably make some friends and you meet people and you do things and people write about you and stuff, he is a name people kind of recognize and, a lot of the stuff. But this is, how about this? Among the examples of Yang's boorish behavior, his own writing per the Times. In one of his books, yes. I remember this now. Sorry, I forgot about this. Someone in chat probably called me out. In one of his books, Mr. Yang described his pectorals, Lex and Rex, and in another, he said he worked out a little too much in college. In the interview last fall, he specified that Rex is the right pectoral muscle and Lex is the left one. Check it out. This is Rex still trying to talk, he said, flexing his muscle. I forgot. He actually did say this, but again, as a literal obvious joke. And then you just tell you 1 second. You can take a look at the guy and say that he's not working out too much now. So it's but I forgot.
And this kind of thing,
he did that. I mean, but it's fun and playful, but still.
This kind of thing, literally, I want to take feminists seriously. There's a couple that I like, but when I see this as being a complaint, I'm just like, I'm sorry. You've completely lost me and you're knucking futs. Natalie Jensen pipes in here. Thank you very much for the super chat, Natalie. Points out, she says, my friends and I sing, I want that pizza. I want that pizza pie. Mm-hmm. Whenever we go to Pizza Ranch, the dessert pizza is the best. We might have to do this. We might have to walk in Andrew Yang's footsteps.
We'll look up the nearest pizza, it's
It's probably somewhere in the Midwest.
Pizza Ranch.
Pizza Ranch, we'll look it up. And then Sly Cactus also said, it's not left, it's not right, it's Lex and Rex.
That was great.
If I get 2 dogs, I'll name them Lex and Rex.
Now, hold on. This was the reference. 1 second. Let me pull it up.
All right.
This is the video the journalist disdainly wrote about when he's like, let me see. Oh, sorry, 1 second, guys. All right, just talk for a second about something, Card, and I got to pause stuff.
Well, actually, I was just thinking I want that pizza, I want that pizza pie. Is that an actual sanctioned song by the restaurant? Or is that a common, I don't know,
hey, Card,
song you just sing for pizza? Yeah, hit it.
Pizza. I like that pizza pie. I like that pizza. Pizza guy. I want that pizza.
Oh man, was he taking a breath?
I want that pizza pie.
Yeah, that was a horrible song.
I like that pizza pie.
It is, but I mean, this is the thing. That
it's a dad joke.
But not only that, it's like it really is just like the media trying to spin somebody being kind of fun and playful as like being a bad thing. He's boorish. It's like, dude, I like
he's boorish.
But yeah, it's
the
like
diminutive
exactly.
Asian guy who's a walking dad joke.
Yeah, exactly.
Is the opposite. I am boorish on a bad day. All right,
exactly.
You know what I'm
it's
saying?
Like, honestly, I would probably criticize Andrew Yang for not being more not boorish, but not exhibiting some of those more qualities. He kind of lets some people take advantage of him and screw him a bit, and he kind of stays a little bit quiet about things. Like there's a lot of things I don't like about Andrew Yang. Trust me, I just support him because I think I like that side of that. I like seeing a politician that was like that also had forward-thinking ideas, and I still do. But anyway, that's most of the stuff I really wanted to go over and show you guys talk about. It's just strap in and get ready for some crazy hit pieces and nonsense stuff about him. I mean, what's the quote in that article is hilarious. And he called himself Pizza Yang and some pizza, but just like so disdainful describing pizza.
Well, I have to tell you, going over these hit pieces. To be honest with you, I was pissed at Andrew Yang for being all happy-go-lucky with Katie Hill the other day. So I can say this now that I've cooled down.
Oh my God, you are
now that I've cooled down. Yeah,
you are ridiculous.
But this is actually a really good sign that if the worst that the New York Times can come up with, and these people are lying piles of flaming hot garbage, okay? If these POSs. If the worst thing that they can come up with
there's this one too.
Is, he paid me for 2 years. Oh, he has bad taste in pizza.
This is an early one. I remember this one.
We went over this one early on.
Yeah, really, this is November of 2019.
Yeah, but this is all a good sign because none of this sticks.
This was the one. But she was the one that, he...
read it out right now so the audience can see it.
I have it up. A woman alleged in 2011 that Andrew Yang, then the CEO of a tutoring company, I believe that was based out of New York City at the time, I believe. I don't remember correctly, actually. But I think it was based definitely out of the Northeast in New York area. Then Yang, then the CEO of a tutoring company, paid her substantially less money than the 2 similar male employees and abruptly fired her after she pressed them. Oh, this is a different one. I forgot about this one. Hold on. There's a lot of them. This Yang, really. Pretty sure anyone who owned a business for years, though, that's the thing that always bothers me, too. It's that it's like... Like what's the word? Like if you were, it's like a murder case, and it'd be like, oh, I swear. It's like, yeah, but it's kind of like I feel like you have sour grapes for like if someone fired you. Now they could fire you unjustly, but it's always weird. Anyway, they go into this that she added that she believed Andrew fired her as retaliation for asking to be paid a salary that was still significantly less than he was paying male counterparts. Yang, now a presidential candidate, is built as a surprisingly popular brand in the Democratic primary race in large part on his background as an entrepreneur. He has lasted in the race longer than much more established and conventional candidates and has outperformed many of the traditional candidates who remain. BuzzFeed News provided the Yang campaign detailed questions about the woman's allegations in a statement. Spokesperson S.Y. Lee only said, like many CEOs, Andrew Yang has had the unfortunate task of letting go staff who did not meet the organization's standards. The information provided by the letter writer does not reflect the reality of the situation. I'm going to go on and mention more. She was the second woman who claimed that Yang made gender-based discrimination while he was the CEO of the tutoring company, which was called Manhattan GMAT. Another woman, Kimberly Watkins, said in September Yang fired her from the company because she had gotten married, adding that he assumed she would not want to work as hard. Watkins claimed she was paid a severance stipend for 2 years instead of after the firing. Yes, I believe that was the woman who
literally, somebody found a way to complain that they received 2 years' pay.
Yeah. No one wants to get fired. No one wants to get fired.
Okay, I'm sorry. If you get fired with 2 years pay,
everyone.
like I'm sorry. If you get fired with 2 years pay, that there is not a peasant of the 1700s.
Just had to be New York City, by the way.
That would not want to switch out. Why do you say it had to be New York City?
Because she was getting paid $87,000 a year, and it was like,
oh yeah.
The other guys make 125. So there was someone making, but again, he hired 2 men with salaries. Honestly,
and by the way, all the phraseology that she complains about, saying like, "Oh, he didn't think I'd want to work there." That sounds like a boss who's trying to let you go.
I'm also totally willing to believe that 9 years ago he hired someone locally and then kind of was like, crap, I gotta like overspend. Like, here's the thing. I think sometimes it's less I'm deliberately paying men more because I like men, and sometimes it's more crap, I need to overspend on help because I need to bring help in to do something. Or the inverse,
how many times
where
has
you
that been debunked?
You overspend on. But what I'm saying
I have no respect for anybody that believes the conspiracy
of,
theory of 80 cents on the dollar.
But again, maybe not universally. I guarantee you there's someone stupid enough out there who really did make a point to pay women less because he hated them. But I also think there's a lot of people out there run businesses who, like, stuff doesn't go well and you overpay employees. Like, it's hard to go to her and say, look, I want to pay them what I pay you, but I agree to a stupid contract with them and I'm locked in now. Trust me, when we go to renegotiate, I want to pay them a lot closer to your salary. I would love it if I paid them your salary, but I'm an idiot and I'm paying them more. Like, I think that's more the...
Cody, you know the answer to this, that when they divide people up into the 4 groups that they are, single males working full-time,
I'm not talking about the
single
abstract.
females working full-time.
I'm not talking about the abstract. I'm talking about, like, people and, like, things people do. Like, something people do is pay some employees too much money just because they got hosed in the negotiation. And they would love to not pay that person that money. They don't gladly pay it to them because they're worth more. They're just like, crap, I wish I was. That's why I don't like to go into this stuff. I'm not saying, honestly, who knows? Maybe Yang really did pull a fast one on this woman. I don't know. I got to be honest.
Yeah, he pulled a fast one on her just so that he could bail her out with 2 years extra pay.
That's a different person. It's a different person.
Oh.
But it's always tough when somebody got fired because it's like, maybe you had to be fired because when you brought up it's like, I don't know. I just feel like people find their angles. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm just looking at it from a business perspective. I could see business people run their businesses bad all the time and pay people stupid amounts of money they shouldn't be paying them. Underpay employees over here. Overpay this moron over there. Get locked into bad deals or bad contracts. Get just hosed and like all that stuff happens a lot more.
Dude, it happened to me,
50K
dude.
Here's the thing.
Do you know how much more chicks get paid in the promo world?
But it's
in the modeling world?
I'm not talking about guys and girls and chicks and discrimination. I'm talking about some people.
I know. Dude, I went into a job once where we were working for this phone company, and I sat down and I replied to an ad that was like, okay, cool, you get $150 a video or something like that, right? And then I thought that was the same deal that everybody else was getting. I sit down, and then there's this bimbo chick who completely convinced this boss guy like that she was getting like triple what we were, and you could tell she just like won him over with her feminine wiles, and it's just like, what? Dude, how are you getting away with $450 a video?
Sometimes it's this. You hire one person and they're like, okay, I gotta move though, I need a relocation fee. And you hire another person and they just don't bring that up and you don't pay him a relocation. I'm not saying in this scenario. I just mean like, again, a little abstract, but it's not like I'm saying a lot of times when anybody at any job is being paid different than someone else, there's probably somewhere along the line, somebody screwed up running the business is a lot more likely than some weird behind the scenes game about identity going on. Yeah. It's a lot more likely. It's like, damn, you know what? You made a great point. I should be paying all 3 of you guys $87K. What the hell am I doing paying these guys so much money? I just feel like that happens a lot, and people don't like to talk about it because it's not fun. It's not exciting. It doesn't make the article.
This next super chat is super interesting.
But it makes it really funny, and it just like, it's easy to overlook, right? That it's like, that happens. Dude, I remember, you know that happened a lot? That happened in wrestling a lot. Where wrestlers, actually famously, this is such a tangent, but it's just interesting, and I'm not trying to compare this to men and women pay differences. That could be a separate discussion. Whatever. I'm not that interested in it, to be frank. I think it's more interesting, though. Let's check this out. There was a famous wrestler. He was the most famous wrestler in the company, right? But he was a weirdo, and he really loved wrestling, and he loved wrestling so much, like being the best wrestler who wins all the time mattered to him. So he didn't ask for more money. Because that guy didn't ask for more money, everybody got paid less because they're not going to pay you more than the best guy.
Okay.
As a result, they were getting screwed money-wise compared to other people. Just sometimes stupid stuff is leading to pay discrepancies. I don't know. I just think a lot of times, same thing in government. People like to the government's obviously doing things intentionally discriminating against people. It's like, dude, they just kind of screw up running these things sometimes. And it's not fair, but it's like, there's less design to it than you think. It's a lot more. Like, I wonder how often that happens. Some woman's like, hey, what the hell? Why are those men making more money than me? And the person paying him's like, yeah, why are they? What the hell? Why am I not paying them less money?
Yeah.
I feel like that's always, everyone's always like, oh no, they should raise the woman's salary. It's like, wouldn't it make more sense to lower the man's salary for the business perspective? I just want to pay you all the same. So let me pay you all the same. I'll lower their salary.
Yeah.
You're not conjuring money out of thin air then. Hey, you know what? Maybe you can use the difference to hire another person. I don't know. Sorry, that was an aside. You read the super chat.
Yeah. You want to read it or you want me to read it?
You can read it.
Okay. So this is an interesting question. Sly Cactus says, curious. Is New York City too big for one mayor? Do you think some large cities should have multiple mayors for better representation?
Well, city council stuff, right? Like it does exist. There's like neighborhood councils.
Now we're addressing We're addressing two separate questions here that sound similar, but they're not. When he says, is New York City too big for one mayor, is a different question about whether multiple mayors would work. Because first off, it wouldn't be a mayorship if there were multiple mayors. It would be a council. So then it would be like a city council. Now, we went through this here recently, Cody. The city of Los Angeles, I don't know how much you were up on local politics but about a decade ago, you'll remember who tried to secede from Los Angeles. Do you remember the West Hollywood secession?
I forgot about that. That was like 2008, right?
I don't remember when it was, but yeah.
Wasn't that around the Prop 8 vote? Because there is a demographic of Los Angelinos that were not on board with gay marriage as much as perhaps West Hollywood was.
I'm going to look up
or was
when.
That a different time? I could have
No, well, there's been different times. When did West Hollywood try to secede?
While you're looking that up, as an aside as well, New York City does, I believe, have all kinds. I don't live there, but they have all these weird like borough councils, right? Like there'd be almost like a city council for each borough they have, right?
Yeah.
I forgot what they call. Only because I think Bobby from The Sopranos is running for one of them.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, I'll pull
really?
it up. Give me 1 second. Pull it up. So, let me look at. But anyway, I'll answer this question in a bit. So, a city.
Well, no, I can answer the question right now. Is basically when West Hollywood was going through. I think they're a separate city, but they were trying to secede from the county. There was some kind of West Hollywood secession going on. And it had mostly to do with funding. And what was really interesting was the man that was the representative of the movement brought up some intriguing statistics and facts on why or what makes a city function well. And there really is a point of diminishing returns in which if a city grows too large in a certain population, not in geography, but in a certain population, and it does not have immediate access to leadership that has immediate access to whoever's in charge and calls the shots, then the people start hating their city, not investing in it as much. And there's actually been all of these studies that show, in any given area, once you get beyond 50,000 or beyond 500,000 or so on and so forth, that dollar per dollar, the city starts becoming less efficient. If it's too small, it's too inefficient because it can't do large projects of large scale. You know what I'm saying? Because it doesn't have enough money. But if it's also too large, it's almost incapable of pulling off big projects because there's too much bureaucracy. And there really is, as social scientists have been able to figure out over the past 100 years of data, there really is a sweet spot for how large a city can get before people no longer feel included and it stops being able to provide infrastructure. And that's not a very large city. Many people say, like, for example, Phoenix, Arizona is about as big as you want to get before you stop being able to provide services and goods for your people at an efficient rate. And so if we tried to apply any of that wisdom to New York City, our first problem would be indeed population. And you might consider, okay, should we augment the power of, the neighborhood councils that they have? Is a mayorship too big? By now, New York's too big. It's too much of a beast. You have to do it the way that it is. Okay. And the mayor's going to win. He's the guy that's in charge of the chief of police. And I don't see how you would change that without some kind of massive upheaval. I mean, if they're not able to change whether or not we do ranked choice voting, how are they going to switch their entire dynamic of their how they run the show and how they do politics in New York? But yeah, so the answer to the question is, do I think it's too big for a mayor? No, I don't. As long as the mayor is good and the system functions. Do I think most cities its size are better served by having less or by being smaller? Yes, I think so. But New York is a very interesting case. I mean, do you think some large cities should have multiple mayors for better representation? I'm all about empowering the localized district.
Well, at that point, though, why not essentially split the city?
Well, that's what I'm saying is if you
create a new city.
Yeah. Before I went into having New York City have like its own town councils, I'd toy with the idea of, what if Staten Island just became its own city? Yeah. What if Brooklyn went back to being its own city and, Queens became its own city?
Because it's approaching like Judge Dredd-esque mega city eventually otherwise. Yeah. Where it's just like you'll have New York is the kind of proto Judge Dredd mega city where it's like,
I haven't seen Judge Dredd. But I remember the picture.
But it's just like in the comics, they'd have the idea. I think they were called mega cities. Correct me if I'm wrong, or maybe super cities. Anyway, it was just this sci-fi concept of these massive cities that are like the size of states that just go on forever. Yeah. And they're basically they just built the cities forever, right? You look at New York City on a map of New York, right? And it's like there was a landmass, and now it is just a gigantic city.
Oh, this is interesting.
Over
Mega
everything.
City 1 was all the way from Florida up to Canada?
It's a comic book. It could be in the moon if they want it, right? But just the idea, right, of like these cities that just encroach forever, right? Like the city never stops growing. And so at a certain point, does it help? Yeah, to just split the city and say, okay, one city ends, another one begins.
Wow.
Maybe use like an industrial center, like rivers, bridges, barriers. They're just different cities now. I mean, they could be sister cities. They could be governed very similar. They could share some lower government or some higher, right? But it wouldn't, I don't know. However, I don't live in New York City, so I can't say for sure if I think New York City's there yet, right? But it is, I don't live in New York City again, but just alone, for example, I'll pull up a number for you guys. Just to kind of, I think some numbers help kind of help get across the scale of something.
Yeah, okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay. Where is the actual numbers? Okay. The NYPD. NYPD, just chat, put a number in chat, you guys. How much do you think NYPD costs on an annual basis? Just the police for New York City. New York City police. What do you guys think? In chat, let me see some numbers for New York City police. How much it costs every year to staff that NYPD? Good NYPD blue. Hopefully,
I would guess $1 billion. $1 billion.
Hopefully they get a cut from all the shows, right?
Yeah, for real.
No, let's look.
$1 billion. I'm guessing $1 billion.
So it mentions here that.
Because
the size of New York City's police department's budget was a prominent focus of this year's budget negotiations, with many activists and elected officials calling for a $1 billion cut. City funding for the NYPD is projected to decline by $282 million from $10.5 billion to $10.2 billion. That's your police alone. That's not everything else in the city. That's not individual neighborhoods. Yeah. That's not individual concerns. That's not the that is literally to fund NYPD. It is $10.2 billion. Can you imagine going to anybody and saying, what do you mean? We made a cut from 10.5 to 10.2 billion?
Jeez.
See, that's nothing. What? That's nothing.
You know why I literally guessed 1 billion is just because if I'm not mistaken, I think the entire state of Iowa's budget is like $1 billion.
Dude, it's an insane number for police.
State of Iowa's budget.
And again,
in May, the Iowa revenue was $7.877 billion in the 2021 fiscal.
How about this? How about the MTA?
So the entire state of Iowa, there's an entire state that has a smaller budget, 30% smaller budget than just NYPD.
dude, this entire
I mean,
country.
that is gnarly.
Hold on. Now,
Yeah.
let's look into something else. And again, the MTA, I understand, technically is not something the mayor deals with. It's, I believe, more statewide than that. However,
Metro Transit Authority, I think, is run by the city.
they have some weird agreement with it, I think.
Okay.
There's some weird thing. Anyway. The MTA is looking to go an additional $3 billion in debt to the Federal Reserve. I'm sorry, the scale of how large New York City is, just to your point about the idea of breaking New York City or having multiple mayors, the scale of the size of the city is insane, dude. Like, the police cost $10 billion. Just the debt of the MTA is up to like $6 billion or something. This is here we go. It's state controlled. The state controlled authority, which received almost $4 billion in federal coronavirus bailout earlier this year, projects a deficit of about $12 billion. So imagine that your police cost you $10 billion, and the trains, which you don't even own and can't control, are $12 billion in debt. Like the just scale of the city is just massive. It's huge. There's so much stuff they do in that city. So it is interesting about having, and I understand, obviously, it's not the mayor and nobody else. They do have a massive bureaucratic state. You have so many bureaucrats in New York City, probably. Because you do. Hey, you know what? Someone's got to sit there and keep the books every time the MTA goes another $1 billion in debt. Someone's got to, think about it. If $10 billion is given to the police for their budget, someone's got to spend the $10 billion. Someone's got to attribute the $10 billion.
So here's my question, though, Cody. It's like, when you look at these numbers, don't you just think that there is an overwhelming need for an immediate injection of conservative leadership into whatever equations here? If you're getting tens of billions of dollars in debt, like,
by the way, MTA,
with this sucky service, you've been on the MTA, it sucks.
That's state. That's statewide. Again, that's not.
Literally, the first time I was on the subway in New York, I was afraid it was going to fall off the tracks. It was making so much noise.
Dude, but I have a question.
Yeah.
I'm assuming then the reason why state controls it probably extends out of city limits in multiple directions, right?
Well, no, it connects with interstate train tracks, but it's all run on. But I think that's the MTA is the city, dude.
Card. I think my larger point is this. I think originally the idea would be because interstate trains use it, the state needs to control it to make sure it works correctly. Governments being what they are, it just means that it's even worse than if the city. Actually, imagine if the city ran it. But you know what I mean? Like, I think the idea was the state's like, oh, we have to, because think about it. The state of New York.
I'm settling this right now. I'm looking up who runs MTA.
No, it's a state-controlled authority. It says it right here in the WSG article.
Okay.
WSJ article. I can go into the deeper thing of it. I haven't read into it in a little bit. Dude, I made a tweet and people are like, oh, you know, the mayor doesn't actually control the trains. And I'm like, I kind of know that, but like the point being, it's his trains. However, I think the idea is, and let me know what you guys think in chat. I think the idea is that basically, if you're in New York State, and you have neighbor states that have trains that go through New York City, it's important.
Yeah.
As a state, you have to be able to kind of like guarantee those other states that those trains can go through. And unless you have control of those trains, you can't.
Yeah.
Like, imagine if the mayor just screwed something up, and now the state of New York's rails are impacted because some idiot screwed up running a city. I think that's my view.
So anyway, you were actually correct. I was wrong. I knew it was the Metropolitan Transportation Authority because I used to have an MTA card when I lived in New York. But yeah, the New York City subway is a rapid transit system owned by the city of New York and leased to the New York City Transit Authority, a subsidiary agency of the state-run Metropolitan Transportation Authority. Yeah, so the MTA is actually a New York State entity, which is kind of interesting.
Well, again, I think it's just because the state needs to be able to just like guarantee that. Like, I think
because you're having train tracks that are going through multiple city limits.
Exactly.
So I could see why the state would almost federalize it, for lack of a better term, and say, okay, cool. Well, but also the other thing we have to remember is the train tracks were probably built by the state way back in the 1850s and 1830s. Yeah.
But again, just kind of the idea of the scope of the city. I mean, the city is just so. Again, my melanated scope is here right here. Thank you very much, man. He said that Chicago is $1.76 billion for the police. Again, a tenth of New York City. Think of Chicago size, police cost 1/10.
Wow.
Only 18% of homicides being solved as well.
With only 18.
Going to New York to canvas for Yang. Oh, no way. Awesome, man. You have to send us some pictures and video. Also, hey, what's up, man? Great seeing you again. But yeah, no, exactly. 18. I wonder what percentage of the homicides are solved in New York as well, right? But I have to just self-correct myself. Bobby from The Sopranos, he isn't running for city council race. He's
supporting
helping.
Patzer.
He's helping someone else run, yeah.
Okay,
He's
interesting.
campaigning for someone.
So is he just doing campaign commercials? What's going on?
I think so, yeah. And I think they said like canvassing and stuff.
Have you ever met
He's
a
making
mafioso?
phone calls. He's doing phone calls. And hanging signs. He's canvassing, basically.
Wow, well, good for him, man.
Support a 24-year-old. Interesting.
Really?
Yeah.
Look at this. He says, I'm not a political guy in the least bit, but I am looking for a guy who takes care of business, and this kid does, says the tough-talking actor. Yeah. I grew up there, and he's doing some good stuff. He's not a politician, which is what I like about him. Interesting.
I'll have to follow that race, too. But I just wanted to kind of correct myself there. He's not actually running.
Wow. That's really intriguing.
Yeah.
And I think that's so interesting because we're used to seeing actors that end up trying to steal the limelight and do the political thing himself. But he's actually just going gung-ho for this Patzer kid.
Yeah.
Wow, that's really interesting. I dig that.
But just about the idea, to get back to let's kind of wrap it up. So outside of the theoretical, literally New York City, do you think New York City has literally reached the size where it would be difficult for any one person to do it?
First off, New York has always been run by mob bosses. In fact, when Edward Norton wrote Motherless Brooklyn, he was writing about a mob boss that ran New York City basically for 40 years. So something that large requires authoritarian power, whether it's overt authoritarian power as manifest by an actual mayor who is actually authoritarian, or whether it is covert behind the scenes authoritarian power, like the mob bosses who are just playing, background chess. A city that large needs kind of, in my opinion, what Machiavelli would call the benevolent dictatorship, right? You know what I'm saying?
Well, Machiavelli, honestly, basically just he was the originator of the Great Reset.
And so, you think Machiavelli was? See, I would argue in the opposite.
Well, no, just like there's literally a thing he wrote about where he said people should be poor, but the state should be rich. Essentially, is what he would argue.
So,
which is like honestly, that's an interesting thought, right? That we should be poor, but the state should be rich, because then the state can use its money to give us what we need, even though we're poor. Which is basically the fundamental when they talk about Great Reset. It's more about an idea of redistributing wealth upwards so that the wealth can be redistributed. It's like instead of the wealth trickling down, it's like beamed down strategically. Like it's the similar concept. Let the wealth go to the top to be moved down, but instead of like a trickle, like a water, it's like they're gonna like lance you with like EBT cards from the heavens, basically when you need them. It's a slightly different take on it, you know.
So now that you've described a complete and total dystopia. I would say this.
Beam down to you from the heavens. It's not that bad.
I actually think a good government structure that defends constitutional liberties and the average person's ability to compete economically in a free market capitalist system with minimal regulations can effectively grow to any size that it wants, as long as those basics are taken care of, and you will see zero problems from me. I think there's arguments of efficiency that can be made about certain sizes, both geographic and population-wise. I think there's certain arguments that can be made about, the diversity of populations, the influx and outflux of people moving for economic betterment here, there, whatever. There's all kinds of other asterisks that can be added to that statement. But by and large, as long as you have a system that is giving access to those who have new and fresh ideas to compete economically on a fair playing field, that's a quality of opportunity, not a quality of outcome, and that government that's been set up is very committed to defending people's individual liberties, it can become a city of 15, 20, 30, 70 million people, and it won't matter. They will, because they're doing it correctly. However, once you start getting so large, the individual figureheads have much more power. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. And it becomes harder for them not to become corrupt. That's my biggest problem with large cities. Not that they are corrupt, but that it becomes a lot more difficult for somebody to not be corrupted by it. And so, I would say I don't think New York is so large that it would need to get broken up. but I could see why that argument would be made, and it wouldn't surprise me if it were.
Imagine breaking up a city like you break up a monopoly, right? Like,
well, no, they would just be going back to the way it was before. Because don't forget, Brooklyn was incorporated.
No, I know.
And there was people
I
that didn't want to become part of New York when Brooklyn was separate.
Oh yeah, but I mean, just trying to go back, right? Like just trying to say, hey, by the way, like you don't control Brooklyn anymore, Manhattan. Like just like imagine, just like no, sorry guys, you don't run that anymore. Like there's people that aren't gonna just sit on their hands and go, well, okay. Yeah. They're gonna they're gonna fight. It's gonna be it would be tough too. I think the nuts and bolts of it. It'd be hard to separate a city, right?
Yeah, without the desire of the city. Now, if the city wanted to secede, then it's actually quite easy.
I wonder also, how are the Twin Cities governed?
You mean Minnesota and in Minnesota you mean
Minneapolis,
St. Paul and Minneapolis?
I think the idea is they're like the two big cities in the state, and they're pretty close to drive across, right?
Yeah.
I believe that's the idea. That's why they're called the Twin Cities. I could be wrong, but I believe they're close to each other. And it's flat, so you can kind of see them. Because it would make sense to have two governors. Because here's the thing. That's actually a dumb question. The larger question to me, it's weird, is there's the not so nice and not so happy truth that some parts of New York City generate more revenue and are more important. It's kind of like when Ukraine tried to join the EU. Remember that?
Yeah.
And the EU is like, cool. And then like the part of Ukraine that has natural resources was like, we don't want to join the EU. And the EU is like, okay, never mind then.
Yeah.
Only the poor part of the country wants to join us for the benefits? No, thank you. Like it doesn't help us. We need money. We can't just bring you in. That would happen with a lot of these cities where they'd probably imagine telling a city they can redraw. Oh, let's just kick these parts that don't generate any revenue out.
Yeah.
Let's kick the tax burdens out.
Yeah.
That would be. And then, I don't know, man. It's an interesting question. I mean, again, we'll get probably more specific talking about Yang actually running for New York City.
Well, I'll tell you right now.
But just the idea of running for New York City.
I wouldn't want to see New York broken up. And the reason why is because you don't see any more big cities getting formed. That's not happening. As they're building out Utah, you're seeing small townships start. And once they get to a certain size, they cut their borders off. They create their little congressional district, like and they're keeping themselves smaller.
You're not seeing cities built up into the sky anymore. A lot of them will kind of hit a certain size.
No, you're definitely seeing what I guess Jordan Peterson would call these natural hierarchies. You know,
but what does it mean natural hierarchy? It's just that
as naturally a size, the cultural cohesiveness. New York is so. New York is so.
Is it conscious? Do they just not build as high as they used to?
No. New York is a completely different animal, and here's the reason why, Cody. It's an island made of granite.
Well, it is the stupidest thing.
You know,
it shouldn't exist.
It's literally this tiny 10-block wide sliver of land. Okay, on the East River side, which is actually the ocean, you can't go anywhere. And then on the Hudson River side, which looks as thick as the frickin' Mississippi at that part of the Hudson River, okay, you can't go anywhere. So the only thing you have is this city the Dutch started to settle that's built on granite, which is conducive to only one thing: massive skyscrapers. If you want more room, and all you have to deal with is pure rock, you drill into it and you go upwards. And so it's because it's a tiny island of granite rock that the whole urban structure of skyscrapers and apartment buildings was built around it. That would never happen in Las Vegas because they'd say, why? There's a football field of room over there. Go build a football field more worth of houses.
Or literally a big empty desert.
Yeah, we'll pave a road. Like that little spot of Vegas could continue to grow indefinitely. Meanwhile, you can't.
Los Angeles even. Think about theoretically.
Los Angeles has the same thing as Vegas. There's basically room to keep going.
Theoretically, they could have, maybe not building code wise, but as far as like population, you could build a bunch of 20-story skyscrapers.
No, not in California. California, every building over 4 feet has settled or pitched like a half a degree.
I understand. That's what I mean. Like there's
seismically you can't
land
do it.
That's what I mean. There's reasons beyond if they.
There's a reason why Elon Musk was making those subway tunnels that can withstand an earthquake because we freaking have this mica schist soil. Come on, you know this from our school history. The dam disaster.
Yeah, the dam. I know all about the dam.
Yeah, the San Francisco dam disaster.
One of the greatest. It's called the St. Francis Dam. That's like one of the greatest America. Dude, okay, something
until the earthquake in '94, it was the most costly.
I don't want to scare people, but the world we live in is remarkably safe today. in a way.
You have to pull up pictures of the San Francisco Dam disaster.
Dude, not even dude. St. Francis Dam is insane. It basically like imagine if the dam broke and it flooded everything. It's like, oh, that doesn't actually happen. It did. No, but not even that long ago, we used to have cool looking buildings and stuff. Jesus. Tell you what, here we go. This is how the St. Francis Dam disaster was described by the Smithsonian. On occasions like this, I envy the dead. I guess that's all you really need to hear about how crazy that was.
Yeah, this ended William Mulholland's career, and that movie Chinatown is basically based upon the water wars that were caused by the need.
Beyond this, dude, like ever heard of the Beverly Hills Club disaster?
No.
Basically, not even that long ago, there would just be like a fire that killed 200 people.
Oh, yeah.
There would just be a collapse.
I know what you're talking about.
A building would just collapse and kill like hundreds of people.
Yeah.
Like that was something that happened in the 20th century frequently.
Yeah.
Some fire, there would just be like some engineering disaster.
Yeah.
The Hindenburg. Whoops. Like that would happen a lot, and it's kind of interesting to think. This is a total tangent, total aside, but you're talking about building and how we have to do all that. Yeah, Los Angeles isn't built 100 feet, 1,000 stories up, right?
Yeah.
But it's because like we've experienced, especially in so many of these disasters, engineering faults where it's like, yeah, everything's crazy now. That's really interesting. I didn't think about it that way. But yeah, recently I was just kind of looking over some of these disasters, and it's like it'd be from the 70s, and it'd be like, yeah, there just wasn't like, there's only one way out, and like if there was a fire there, you'd all die. And there was a fire. It's like, what? I don't know. Again,
so here's the last
aside,
question.
but just something that always kind of weirded me out.
Oh, wait, we got another super chat. So that will be the second question. We had an interesting question asking about the Gavin Newsom recall. And
they're like 1 million away, I think, right? 1 million signatures away?
They're coming up on the signature threshold. Coronavirus has made it a lot more difficult because obviously you usually go to events.
Mm-hmm. Pardon, 1 second.
Yeah, what?
Just on that, I would occasionally on weekends drive from where I live in northern Los Angeles to visit some family who live just south of Los Angeles, in the kind of near the ocean south of Los Angeles.
Yeah.
On my way to the freeway, I would see people set up with Recall Gavin Newsom booths. We live in a kind of conservative place. I would drive through LA. If I get off and get gas, I would see people with Recall Gavin Newsom groups. And then when I would get south of Los Angeles and I would get off the freeway to visit my family, I would see people with Recall Gavin Newsom signs. Like on a Saturday, if I just drive up and down California and stop at a couple places, you will see him. It's building up, right? Like you see him everywhere.
Yeah, and how can you not? Adam Carolla said it. Like I don't have respect for any supporter of Gavin Newsom. Like you can't say, and to be honest with you, I don't think any young person that has any hope for the future can ever support a Democrat again until they figure things out, because they've destroyed everything in California.
Okay, but while they're
I did 3 exit inspections today.
No, but Card, I understand that, but here's the thing.
And the hurt that man has put on an entire state is just.
There is Republican lawmakers in California, right?
No, there's not. That's the thing.
In California.
We're so gerrymandered. No, dude, less than like 11% of our state legislature.
They exist in some parts. The problem seems to be less party and more that like what do you mean the problem is the less party? Look at everybody who's ruining everything. Garcetti, Democrat. Newsom, Democrat. Again,
City Council, all Democrats.
I don't think logically you can avoid falling into a trap if you do that. Just say, well, they're all Democrats, so it must be Democrats. I always say this. There's these cities that appear to be just kind of like monuments of misery. But is it because they're these monuments of misery that they vote for the Democratic Party to try to save them?
Or maybe it's because they haven't had any other party's mayor for 50 years.
What if, when things start getting miserable, people seek out the Democrats to help them, and Democrats being politicians fail them? I'm asking, what if it goes that
so at
way?
what point does the person say, yes, the Democrat Party failed us?
What I'm saying is...
And there are a bunch of corrupt psychopaths who act like, as Andrew Schultz says, 80s movie supervillains filling up the Van Nuys and the Venice skate park with sand.
I know, but
instead of helping people.
But here's the thing. The Republicans...
Passing bills that give $10 million to Pakistan gender studies.
Okay, here's the thing.
Instead of bailing out small businesses.
I understand that, but it's easy to just get mad at the dams. But again, dude,
there's no one else in California, Cody. This isn't an argument I make in Texas.
Why? I don't think it's so simple as because they have the D next to their name and people kept putting their check in the box.
So you don't think the party's corrupt?
I think our government's corrupt.
Okay, and then who is the government in California,
Here's the thing.
Cody?
If Republicans are in
Who
power,
is the government in California?
It's Democrats. But here's the thing.
Okay, there. We agree.
No offense, but I agree in the facts, but here's the thing. That's kind of like childish logic. Well, they have a D next to their name, and it's bad. The D's bad.
Okay,
what I'm saying is...
No, but I've been consistent about this the whole time. I said, don't tell me, please, that POS, all right, that Andrew Yang had to sit down. Come on, who is a big used to be a civil rights guy, but now he's just a grifter.
You're moping Al Sharpton now?
Yeah, Al Sharpton.
What are you moping about Al Sharpton?
Yeah, so Al Sharpton, shining beacon of working on behalf of the people. Right? No, BS.
But dude, again,
you and I both know that.
Okay.
Put Al Sharpton on steroids, and that's the California Democratic Party.
Here's the thing that I always have a problem talking politics with people is this. We'll start talking politics. They'll bring up something in the government they don't like, something the government's doing. I'm like, yeah, dude, those people suck. Those people are the worst. To hell with them. Why are they doing this, right? And then they'll go like, yeah, they all have R's next to their name. And I'm like, well, I don't know, man. I feel like the D's do the same and the same thing. Yeah, of course the government sucks because they're all Democrats. I'm like, yeah, but like Republicans are just as happy to sit in their hands and let the same thing happen.
That's what exactly the tyrannical side wants you to think is that it's a wash. No, they're both the same.
Tyrannical
same side of the same coin.
They want you to believe you're fighting for something
Look,
you
there's
can
a
win.
difference between incompetent, hate you, psychopath, and a lazy guy.
But Cardin,
Republicans are lazy and self-serving.
Okay, but Cardin, what I'm saying is this. What is the order it goes in? Is it just because the D happens to be on the ballot next to their name, they're evil, awful people? Or is it just like both parties have their...
To succeed in the Democrat Party, you have to be willing to lie more than you do in the Republican Party.
Both parties have their unique way... Not really. They have their... Republicans lie different ways. You just have a unique way of failing the people. They could fail you by meddling in your life, or they could fail you by sitting back while other people meddle in your life. Pick. And it's because
but you look at the platforms and the ethos of the two parties, and there is a difference. There is a stark difference.
I don't care about pathos and ethos, dude. It doesn't feed me, doesn't put any food on my table, doesn't pay my taxes, okay? I don't care about pathos and ethos and all these concepts. Republicans will just sit on their hands while a business screws you, and the Democrats will actively promote the government into screwing you. And it's because the American government currently is not serving the people correctly. And the thing is...
Yeah, that's an old 1980s stereotype that hasn't been true.
Dude, there is literally, there are two wings on the same bird, and they keep the bird in the air because they work together. Here's the thing. They're on the left and the right side, but they go up and down together, dude. They move the bird up and down. Like, the idea is that, like, they work in concert. They might not be moving literally the same direction, but they work in concert.
That is a drastic
they both
oversimplification
need each other to exist.
That abdicates the role of participating in a system. And as I have participated in the system, I have found that, yes, there's greasy Republicans out there. The stupid vape guy, the chick Loeffler who dumped a bunch of stock when she found out Corona was going to happen. Yeah, there's some greasy movers and shakers. But the batting average on behalf of the American people is better with one than the other.
I got a question for you, man.
Okay.
Who's always grandstanding about taking down Google, fighting for the Republicans? Who is it? Just think of the people that are fighting against
I don't think any of them are fighting. I think grandstanding is the word.
Well, hold on. I thought who grandstands the most about
Ted Cruz.
You know who calls all these damn hearings? Sorry, I said to myself earlier and did it anyway. Jim Jordan. He always calls these hearings. Republican. One of the good guys.
Yeah, what state's he from?
The ethos of Jim Jordan, he's one of the good guys.
Yeah.
Anyway, in the antitrust hearing this week, Rep. Jim Jordan hectored? I'm not familiar with that one. I'm not smart enough for Fast Company, apparently. Google CEO Sundar Pichai about rigging search results to help Democrats help Democrats hurt conservatives, right? Who would have known that Jordan...
Yeah, this guy isn't locking down my town, driving an entire generation of young men to suicide, shutting down entire industries.
Hey, Cardin, he could if he would. He doesn't. When the House Judiciary Antitrust Subcommittee hosted the big tech CEOs earlier this week, the hearing veered off into chaos several times. Each time it was caused by the hysterics of GOP resident attack dog Jim Jordan of Ohio.
Name one Republican right now that is keeping people from putting food on their table.
Tell you what, dude, we can
name one.
We can move the goalposts whenever you want, but let me finish this. Jordan had no obvious understanding of or interest in tech antitrust issues, but used his time to harangue the CEOs about their company's alleged censorship of conservative viewpoints, particularly Google. It was a surprising stance, and they mentioned that he kept going on. It was a surprising stance from the congressman, given that Google's given $10,000 to his re-election campaign in 2020. Not that big a deal. They've also been funding him every cycle going back to 2012.
Yeah, let's see if that continues or
not. It will continue. You know what Jim Jordan's job is? His job is to call these...
To fake that he actually cares.
Yes. Call the stupid phone here. These are all people that work in the government screwing you, taking bribes from businesses to do things deliberately to benefit the businesses and screw you. Now, you could say that for whatever logos or ethos or pathos reason, that R represents the shining beacon of hope, but in reality, they work together to screw you. The people doing the things you don't like, they're in government doing what they do. They're allowed to function because he works with them. They work in the same system. They're literally they're literally co-workers.
But your whole thesis is that not a single one of the politicians can be good.
No, it isn't.
And
no. My thesis is the opposite. Individual politicians, sure, they can be good.
You can't name one. Except for maybe Andrew Yang on a good day.
You know why I can't name them? You know why I can't name them? Because they sure as hell don't stay in politics. They're not famous. They don't do a whole lot of stuff.
Well, then how could our country have been? Our country was founded by a bunch of politicians.
No, it wasn't. It was
yes,
founded,
it was.
No, it wasn't.
Yeah.
George Washington
had been in Congress for 20 years by the time it became the United States of America.
Here's the thing, Cardin. These are
had been in 3 different Congresses.
It was charitable to call it those people were doing politics in a way. In a scope state. Like they were ruffians. They were trying to build their own country and stuff. Like, dude, this wasn't like it is now, 100 years later. How about this? You know a weird thing? How many Americans today, I'll be one of them, I don't go to church, I don't believe in God a lot. How many Americans do you think? Has it dropped over the years? Because the way America was designed, correct me if I'm wrong, fundamentally was like this. God gives you the rights, the state protects the rights. Yeah. So it's like the state's job is to make sure nobody gets in the way of this direct line of rights having from the God figure to you. Okay? However, society doesn't believe in that stuff anymore as a whole. If there's no God to grant you the rights, you must assume the state does, right?
Oh, yeah, which is a great improvement.
If the state can grant the rights, it could take them. If God's granting you the rights, the state can't take them. They could just
so it almost makes you think that generally the atheistic, leftist, secular push we've had is bad for our country.
You could argue that. My larger point is this, though. Things have changed. Things have moved. It's not the same anymore. It's not the America of 180, 200 years ago. Literally is not. We literally have different people who believe different things that live in it. And by the way, the words on paper are words on paper, and they can be read. Why do you think there are people who are like textualists in the Supreme Court? And there's people that there's people that their whole shtick in the Supreme Court is that they I follow every word as strictly as possible. Because they understand that you could literally have 50 people reading the same document. 50
we got a super chat here that I'm going to weave into our little conversation. Kenneth Booker, thank you for the super chat. Says, didn't the founding fathers own slave? Yes, that's a reductionist soundbite that the progressives want to pound into your head. Omitting the fact that...
I'm assuming... I have a question, though, quickly. I gotta admit, I don't know this. Did every single one?
No, not every single one.
I wouldn't be surprised.
No, but there were some prominent ones.
Right?
For example, Thomas Jefferson very famously did indeed have slaves. Actually, probably had sexual relations with... I think her last name was Hemming. Not Hemingway,
also,
but now there's actually descendants of Thomas Jefferson and this female slave that he had at the time. However, all the founding fathers, upon starting this country, were basically adamantly unified in ending as soon as possible the slave trade. Within 8 years of signing it, they said no more slaves coming to the continent for sale. George Washington famously freed his slaves.
Oh, we got one more.
Yeah, there's actually a lot of really interesting research that can be done on the opinions of the founding fathers and the argument that was slavery on the North America continent.
Well, how about this, though? I wonder. Anyone knows more of history, let me know. Where, around the time of America's independence from England, was that around the same time England was pushing to abolish slavery?
Well, it depends. It was a 250-year struggle.
No,
so if you say wasn't that around the same time?
No, but I understand. But there was also when England abolished slavery, and it was earlier than us by 70 or 80 years. They abolished slavery in their country and started going around the world. I honestly wonder if it was a political. I'm not trying to defend the founding fathers here. I just do remember if part of them owning slaves on top of owning slaves because just people did back then and they owned them. If it was also
so in 1807 is when they abolished slavery in Britain.
I was wondering if it was around like the 1770s, if it was like a thing where it was like the founding fathers like America needs slavery because we're not England, like just like stupid partisan stuff like that. Yeah. But I'm glad to see. But think about that. Shortly after our revolution, 30 years later, is when England finally abolished slavery.
Yeah, Charlie Kirk actually has a really interesting...
England abolished slavery about 80 years before we did, right? 70 years before we did. So
yeah. So anyway, I'm going to finish these super chats up. Yeah, I don't have that reductionist view that's hammered. Like, everybody thinks they're so...
I mean, all that guy said was, didn't they own them? And it's like, yeah, they did.
No, yeah, but I'm saying that these new history books that are coming out, when you read excerpts of them, they're written by these SJWs that try and just reduce the founding fathers into a white patriarchy that owned slaves. And it's like, that is such a pathetic dereliction of your historical duty. I almost don't even
back
like repeating.
Then there were so many white races for other white people to hate. Like it wasn't like it is now, where it's like
actually what's funny
is there wasn't like the white race back then. Like something is hilarious.
Yeah, that was Blumenbach in the 1780s.
Why does the term WASP exist?
White Anglo-Saxon Protestant.
But why does it exist?
Well, it exists because people in the 70s, critical race theory started getting big.
But what I'm saying is,
and they tried saying that was the dominant race in America.
My larger point is this: is because, like, trust me, you might not believe it if you're a modern American. White people were killing the wrong white people for like hundreds of years.
The wrong white people.
They were. I'm not even kidding you. For like hundreds of years. Like, it's been going on all for thousands of years. Thousands of years that was going on. So like. I wouldn't be surprised if our founding fathers were too busy beating off, people from the. Dude, I mean, if you want to, you can look not even that far and just look at the relationship between, maybe like Ireland and England and countries like that. Like,
yeah, and see what they think about each other.
Yeah, like it's just like not everyone's not. There was a reason why saying all men are created equal was like a pretty bold stance, because people found every single different category of different person than them to not be equal to them for a very long period of time. Like, dude, oh my God, when I found out about the beefs, and this might be a little bigger, but one of the first things where I discovered, it was trying to frame this, one of the earliest moments online when I discovered something online and how people treat each other and talk about each other from different countries online and realized, wow, it is a big world out there, was the Serbia and Turkey beef. I had no idea that the Serbs and the Turks just have it out for each other. Yeah. And I would go online and just see and some of the most vile things about people from this part. And it's just...
Okay, so we're gonna have to wrap up.
All
here
the various different groups of people that hated each other for really weird reasons that have existed throughout time.
Okay, so we're gonna have to wrap it up here soon. So if you got any more super chats, get them out of your system right now, because we're cruising through these last super chats here.
This is a super chat. I like this from Spliff Sensei Rojogi. It said, "Yeah, they've been gangwanging way before us. All my Nordic and Germanic friends have been against Britons." That's exactly it. It's exactly what it was like back then. It was just like people from like different areas just being like, "Oh, they're like a little bit different than us."
Yeah, ask an English person if he likes the average Frenchman still.
I had 100 Years War, man.
You know what I'm saying?
The English and the French. I mean, you have all kinds of just like weird little beefs that existed for forever.
So anyway, Sly Cactus says, if you're allowed to talk about it on here, worst part about your Rona experience.
And then one more super chat after that, too.
How many extra limbs did you grow? Well, that was a super chat. So thank you for the super chat, Sly Cactus.
One more after that we got as well.
What was the worst part about your Rona experience, Cody?
For just being in lockdown for 14 days. That sucked. Especially because it was Christmas, like being in lockdown for 14 days. And the worst part about it too was like basically it was like the week before Christmas was when I was sick, which was when like I was like I had like a sore throat but I wasn't like
and you want to get your Christmas shopping done, but you can't.
Not even that. It's one thing just being sick. The days kind of go by, right? Yeah. But then the second week, the Christmas week, I was kind of feeling mostly better, like not 1,000%.
But it wouldn't go away.
But beyond that, it was like now I was just sitting around in isolation, only kind of sick, and it was like Christmas Eve and Christmas. Like it would have been one thing if I was just like in bed, like, oh my God, what day is it today? That'd be one thing. But it was like I was just sitting around like, wow, I wish I was celebrating Christmas with my family instead of just sitting around feeling sort of sick. That was the worst thing for me. It was just that last week of isolation and just kind of not being that sick anymore, but still not being able to be around people.
Yeah, it laid me out for a little bit less than a week bad. But for me, the worst part was the not going awayness of it. I could understand why this would scare an elderly person or an elderly person's doctor too, because your breath would get short enough. You know what I'm saying? They'd actually kind of think like, do I have to consciously breathe in more? Like, am I getting enough oxygen? And so I could see why a respiratory illness would be scary especially with all the irresponsibility and sensationalism of the media. And that's one of my biggest frustrations during this whole coronavirus pandemic is that the media has not been offering education that empowers you to know that, okay, there's a 99.9% chance that you're going to survive this. Okay, yes, all of these symptoms that seem drastic are part of the recovery process. Let's get you help if you need it, but by and large, you will probably be okay. Let's calm the situation down through information and education. No, they wanted to ramp up the clicks and the views through exacerbation. And that's why Donald Trump's right when he says the enemy of the people is the freaking media. So
it's not the media. It's specifically the New York Times.
Well, Andrew Yang might be saying that right now too.
I don't think it's all the media. It's time and time again, the New York Times specifically. Dude, there's a Twitter account called New York Times Gloom. Dude, New York Times, they'll only post pictures of people looking miserable and awful. It's like they just hate it feels like the New York Times is being ran by the AI from I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream. Like it just hates humans so much.
So Cyclactus has another super chat. Says a group of salamanders is called a congress. This proves congress are not lizard people, but instead are amphibious people. Well, I have something to say about salamanders. Salamanders are so stupid that they can only eat if they basically stumble onto their food, and they absorb many of their nutrients through their skin. And I would suggest that your average congressman just is that self-serving and dumb, where they can't actively go out and get food for their people, actively go out and get something good for their people. They rely upon their people to infuse them with what they need in order to survive. And that's a system that was not that way in the first 150 years of our country, has been that way in the past 60. And all these boomer, self-serving, horrible people, a la Nancy Pelosi, Joe Biden's, self-enriching, corrupt politicians like Gavin Newsom and Eric Garcetti, who've made fortunes off of their corruption and their grift, need to go, because they're salamanders who've just been sucking up nutrients to self-aggrandize without serving the ecosystem.
I think they banned that Twitter account, dude.
Oh, did they really?
That sucks. It would literally, dude. I mean, like I can just open up the New York Times and show you what they're talking about. Like I'm not even kidding you. It's even like a partisan thing. It's like New York Times hates human beings. Like let's just look at the pictures of people posted on the New York Times.
Yeah, so anyway, Kenneth Booker says, I'm just saying that because they did really good things. They also did terrible things too. Hey, well, look, I'm fine with that. I'm fine with contextualizing history and understanding that great people sometimes will do bad things as well. But that's not what we're doing right now. And that's why I do have this problem with the D's, because they're tearing down. Did you see they're getting rid of Abraham Lincoln Elementary up in San Francisco? They're saying he didn't do enough for the black community and all that garbage.
Here's the thing, Card. Here's the thing. Like
what?
If somebody says that Abraham Lincoln literally didn't do enough for the black community.
No, they're getting rid of Abraham Lincoln Elementary. Look it up.
I'm saying is I understand, and I know they're getting. And dude, it does sound almost hilarious. It's like, well, I gotta feel like he did a lot more than people before him had. Like Abraham Lincoln did.
No, they're literally saying. And by the way, it does.
Dude,
by the way, it has to do with quote people of color because of comments he made about American Indians.
I understand it, and maybe he could have been nicer to the Indians. I don't know. But all I'm saying is this, Cardin, is that sometimes, yes, people out there are going to have some goofy-ass opinions, like Abraham Lincoln should have been like a progressive from 2020 when he was the president of America in the 19th century for whatever reason. Yeah. And it's like, you know what? Kind of an unreasonable standard.
But probably show me if you say that they're both two sides of the same coin. Show me the Republican who's trying to get rid of the Clara Barton women's school.
They're not trying to get rid of, but they would want to name the school after something stupid for some dumb reason because it exists.
These are destructive ideologies that bleed out of the theoretical into real life.
I understand, Cardin. I understand that the ethos. I understand these things that only exist in concept.
You really love that I said that word.
It cracks me up just because it's like, yeah, dude, that's what makes policy, not human beings in their hands. It's other things. Like people say ideas are dangerous. You know when people betray their ideas as soon as it becomes convenient to them? You know how many plans and ideas got halted and perverted and screwed up the second it just was easier to do something else? It's like, no, man, it's the people the cogs in the machine. It's like, imagine if you had a machine and the cogs and they could just randomly change whenever it just suited them.
Yeah.
That's what political systems are like. It's like, why didn't communism, the only reason why capitalism, quote unquote, works is because, like, it's like one of those things where it's like capitalism can keep itself standing up in like in a weaker state that other economic systems can. That's really all it is, mostly. It's like the capitalism can kind of be taped and just kind of held together a little bit more so than like some of
that's
these
even if
other
what you
systems.
could call now is capitalism.
My
It's
point
like,
exactly.
yeah.
It can be so perverted and twisted.
This is
and
like
weird,
crony capitalist.
but be propped up still. Where if you were to pervert and twist, eventually communist states, it just, if you screw with them too much, they do collapse eventually. It just gets too bad. It's too untenable. Capitalist states, you can kind of float in this bad state for a long time, you know? Where it's bad, but you could still move up, and some people in the middle are still doing okay, and it still is possible to move up. So it's like, it's bad, but it's not, and you're able to kind of just like maintain it, you know? But here's the sad thing. What if that's best case? Like, what if like we've tried all these economic systems and a system that sucks, but you can kind
I
of
don't
move
think
up
there's
and
a
it doesn't
single
fall apart.
I
all
don't
the
think
time,
there's
it's like
a
the best.
I don't think there's a single conservative out there that doesn't view that as what if this is best case scenario. In fact, the only reason why I've maintained that, yes, once you actually add up all the points on the scoreboard, that your average conservative Republican is a better choice for leadership than your average liberal Democrat is because they're able to at least figure out that maybe this is as good as it gets, and that trying for something quote better as you dictate it by parameter A and parameter A alone could cause more damage and yield something worse than what we kind of have right now.
So again, it's less of the D and the R, and it's more the kind of fundamental push and pull from, that's why I like conservative and progressive as things. Because here's the thing. In the 1920s, there was a lot of progressivism.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it gave us Birth of a Nation getting played in the middle of Woodrow Wilson's White House. Super progressive.
1920s progressivism. I talked about this before, but this is true. You can look it up. There's different takes on it, but this is the reality. In the 1920s, we were big on progress and we were big on being new. And one thing is we were big in the 1920s on listen to the science and believe science isn't like a new slogan. We believed science and we listened to the science a lot in the 1920s. Unfortunately, that led us down some pretty awful paths. Mainly, I'm speaking about eugenics, which was something that came from following the science. We were going to make humanity better. We were going to make a better man and moving like crazy weird ideas. And we decided, you guys can, one of the premier research centers for eugenics in the world is in Pasadena, California in the 20s. And it's because back then this was progressive, not evil. And then we saw the ends of it and we saw, it seems that progresses us towards evil, and we got away from it. But it's one of the scary things about, I think, one of the scary things about conservative beliefs politically is you can sometimes hold things back too much. You can hold us back from what's necessary progress, right?
Yeah.
But the problem with just blind progress is it truly is that blind progress. It's like when it's literally like the tunnel. It's like the light at the end of the tunnel. It's bright, and you just hope when you get out of there it's okay, really. You know, in that moment when you're driving through a tunnel?
Yeah.
And it's like, obviously, you assume you're on the road and you can see a little bit. But for a second, you kind of have to just hope. It's like if there's a semi-truck flipped over as soon as I get out of there, I'm going to hit it. I can't see anything. The lights, that's kind of the progressive movement can be like, right?
Yeah.
Where it's like, something's coming, I hope it's good. Oh, no, that's so bad. And then, like, it's really hard to put things back together again. But at the same time, sometimes it is good on the other side, right? So sometimes it's good for conservatives to hold back progressive wings of the political movements anyway, saying, you know what, maybe we shouldn't move forward with this. Maybe that will take us bad places. You need that, but you also need the people constantly trying to take you new places so you can get to those places. Does that make sense? Like, you need the push and pull. You need the, hey, we have to do this and this, and you need people to be like, well, hold on a minute, maybe not. Because then whenever one side is truly able to make the best case, you can kind of hope that's what we should be doing right now.
Yeah, but that's why I'm saying is right now one side cannot make the best case because the way that you make a case by debating in the public sphere, for example, is all dominated by neo-lib leftists.
One side can't make the best case. The right can't make the best and the left can't make the best because neither of them are the best.
Oh, Cody, are you about to make a slogan for Andrew Yang right now?
No, but what I'm saying is like it isn't that simple. Everyone, Do you know what?
No, I'm not saying it's that
do you know where
simple,
most
and then I have some kind of
frust-
benign,
No, I'm not- no.
doe-eyed
I'm
view
not saying
of.
that either. But I'm saying a lot of political frustration comes from, but I'm right. And it's like, okay, but other people feel that they're right.
Yeah, well, other people, I want to see their credentials and the
Okay.
experience that
Okay,
they're actually talking from first. I don't think you need a PhD in something, but I will trust a guy like me who has had to
Carter,
sign
I'm just
checks
saying-
for 20 employees and who's had to run a $500,000 company
you know what's
to talk
killing-
about
okay,
business
you know what's killing
more
politics
than
right
some
now?
idiot that just graduated from
Okay.
CSUN.
You know what I think is killing political stuff right now, political theory right now?
What?
Consistency. Consistency is there's this one guy, Vosh, that is, the crazy communist guy. He always talks about, I'm trying to be consistent, I'm trying to be consistent. So a quote from Al Davis, and I love it. Pardon me, I'm going to swear. I won't swear. Basically he says, I don't care about being consistent. I want to be right. Like why would I want to be consistent if it leads me, for whatever reason, you'll notice a lot of people stress consistency in politics. Like, why, dude? Like, why would you want to be consistent? Like, I'd rather a political system that's adaptive, that morphs. That's like, okay, you know what? Because here's something to get to the idea. When we were talking about eugenics and stuff, you know why we really canceled eugenics? Is because you know who loved eugenics? The racist progressives from 100 years ago. We have racist progressives now. Racist progressives love it because through a racist mind view, eugenics was awesome. Like, yeah, let's breed out the undesirables. Like, their mind goes to crazy places, you know? But it's like the idea, like today, if I described eugenics to you as just using science to prolong life and make life a better experience for everyone who lives, right? No one's going to be like, that sounds evil. Like, well, we just want to make sure that we're making sure that we keep advancing as humans, that we have less of these birth defects, less of these genetic mutations, less of these cancers, diseases. Like, don't you want to get rid of that? It's like, yeah. Well, it's like when you explain that to a world that's kind of weird and racist, they're going to be like, we can just kind of get rid of some of these people. Like, you have to understand that you can control the message, but you can't control who it gets to, right? Because to us nowadays, when we don't believe in selectively breeding out races, I hope at least, we're using a lot of these similar science ideas for trying to figure out where does some mental issues come from, especially things like autism stuff. That's
no, they're trying to you
overt.
basically pull a eugenics on Down syndrome children. It's what they've done.
I was talking about autism specifically because that's a little bit different. Because autism is it's something that people can easily live with and go through their life, and it's there's degrees, right? It varies from some people, but a lot of people can be what they call high functioning, which is kind of a weird way to put it, right? But it's just not this it's not the kind of mental condition that might be as I don't say debilitating, but as separate as some other people experience, right? Yeah. My larger point is, it feels like the kind of thing, weird, creepy science, people think they can those are the margins they feel like they can control. You know what I mean? You'll notice when they don't feel like they can control the margins, like Down syndrome, they want to just axe it. And it's scary because they can't control those margins. They can't fudge it. They're like, yeah, you literally are going to have to live with the fact that there's people born into this world in a condition that you might find unacceptable, but you don't get to dictate if they should live or not. However, that's one of the weird things. You look at the abortion argument with that, right? Because here's the thing, right? The racist, crazy eugenicists of 100 years ago, if you described aborting babies that exhibited a certain trait 100% of the time to basically remove them from the gene pool, they're like, hell yeah, brother. There's just some disagreements on what that specific deformity is, you know? And I think, personally, I think it's wrong in general. But there's some people that, some of those ideas linger. They stay. This idea that it's well, why don't we use science to just kind of get rid of things that we think are bad? And it's what if you just stop certain people from ever being born so they can't breed again? And it's that line of thinking does exist today. It's framed differently, but to your point, yeah, it's mostly with deformity and mental health and mental conditions. I can't think of the best word for it, right? But it's weird. But again, it's not some random thing we've never done before. 100 years ago, we had the same thoughts and ideas. We were trying the same things. And it's just I don't know. It's one of the reasons why I kind of bristle at the idea that it's it's the Republicans that are the fault or the Democrats that are the fault. Because it's that is it's just such a down the line byproduct of everything else goes on in politics. Because here's the thing, dude. The reason why politics is so frustrating to people that think being right matters is because you'll never find 100% people to agree with you. Even if you are right. One of my favorite things is on the internet when they do the PEMDAS questions, they'll do like 2 + 2 parentheses 4 + 4 divided by 5. What's the right answer? And people will do it every single different order you could possibly do it in. And they'll explain to you in great detail why the specific order of PEMDAS they did was the right one. And everyone is just convinced. This is math, dude. We say math is like law, right? And they're just convinced, like, no, it's 4. It is not 22. Because, and like, they'll do the whole equation, all this stuff, dude. Politics is the same thing, okay? Where it's like people will just never, even if you're right, they'll never come to that. A large group of people won't. Like I said, the people that want to take away Abraham Lincoln Elementary School because Abraham Lincoln, I love it. Like, if you look at comparatively, I feel like he did a lot to help black people in America specifically. Like, specifically black people in America. That specific group
but that's
of people.
because you grew up in an educationist system that revered the
Carter,
person
my point is,
ideologically.
if somebody's gonna,
so you laugh at it. But what about these kids that aren't getting that?
I don't even revere him. I just recognize that he was.
Okay, you're capable to recognize it because you were taught that he's the guy that signed the Emancipation Proclamation.
Well, yeah.
When they get rid of that with the BLM credentials and curriculum that they're trying to push in our school district, then that's not going to be the case for the next generation,
I got bad
Cody.
News for you, Cardin. The way you understand the world is because other elements of history were deleted by the people you lionize. They've just deleted those aspects out of history.
No, and why do you think I'm such an avid reader of history? And I don't have some doe-eyed view that America was this perfect benevolent queen who just marched west handing out gifts to minorities as she went along. I'm very aware that there were more wounded knees out there than there were like...
Not even that, right?
What do you mean not even that?
But I'm not trying to say America's evil. My point is just that, like...
Yeah, here, I'm reading a super chat as you finish your thought.
Okay. No,
Kenneth Booker says, search George Carlin, middle class, it explains it. You're probably more George Carlin than I am.
We'll see if I can pull up a text-based version. If I play it, I guarantee we'll be yeeted out of the solar system. But
do you know what they're talking about specifically?
A little bit, so I'm going to look it up, see if I can get some text versions of it.
Is this the stand-up where he said, it's a club and you're not in it? Is it that one?
This. Let me see if I can. I'll pull it up. Just go.
Okay. So, that's actually all I had to say is Kenneth Booker said, search George Carlin, middle class, it explain it. I think that might have been a little bit of some fat finger auto-correctings. From an iPhone. But thank you very much for the contribution, Kenneth Booker.
I wonder if he's talking about. Let me play this.
Okay, let's see.
So let me see if I can adjust it for you guys a little bit easier to see. It's this lower passage. That's all the media and the politicians are ever talking about. The thing that separates us, things that make us different from one another, that's the way the ruling class operates in any society. They try to divide the rest of the people. They keep the lower and the middle classes fighting with each other so that they, the rich, can run off with all the money. Fairly simple thing. Happens to work. Anything different, that's what they're going to talk about. Race, religion, ethnic and national backgrounds, jobs, income, education, social status, sexuality, anything they can do, keep us fighting with each other so they can keep going to the bank. You know how I describe the economics and social classes in this country? The upper class keeps all the money, pays none of the taxes. The middle class pays all the taxes, does all the work. The poor are just there to scare the S out of the middle class and keep them showing up at those jobs.
That's funny. I love where he said at the beginning, smug, greedy, well-fed white people have invented a language to conceal their sins.
Yes.
It's as simple as that. The CIA doesn't kill anybody anymore. They neutralize people. Yeah. They don't they depopulate the area. They go, dude, that's like SJWs reinventing the language.
This, Cardin? How many people literally viewed their BLM donations this year as essentially purchasing a indulgence? How many people do you think fundamentally viewed it that way? Yeah. I have sinned.
White nor'eastern billionaires.
What I'm saying, it is. You'll notice that we have different words to describe the same ideas, feelings, and actions that happen all the time because human beings are human beings. We haven't fundamentally morphed into a new thing. People have different tendencies. We change our tendencies. We change the fickle things you can change. We do change, but it's at the core, it's always the same thing over and over and over and over and over and over again. It's just how we get there is always different. Yeah. That's what, I love the idea that communism was something that we came up with a couple hundred years ago, this collective communal living. Collective communal living was something we had to come up with. That was not how humans started to live and still live. And collective communal living, it's almost like the problem with communism in the modern world is it's a mixture of it's like trying to live how we used to, but hold on to all the benefits we get from living how we do now. And it's like we just kind of we try, man, but we can never do it. But I don't know. It's funny and interesting to me a little bit how it's like people act like some of these things we do now, like even capitalism. Like, yeah, no one ever traded. There was no traders. Those famous trading roads that in the desert of the early stages of humanity, there was no like capitalist market economy at all. There was no supply and demand back. None of that existed back then. These are concepts some dudes put in books and then they existed. It's like
if you're suggesting
we've just gotten
belief,
better at what we do, but
belief
we've
in
added to it.
If you're suggesting the belief in the free market as opposed to the redistribution of wealth by a centrally planned entity is a superior way of doing economics because it mirrors nature's way of human interaction for the past 4,000, 5,000 years, yes, I would agree with you.
Well, no, I mean, technically,
I would agree with
communism would be closer to how early man lived, right?
Oh, no, BS.
Yeah, it was like a collective system. Like everyone went out there and worked.
No,
Dude,
it was not a collective.
You were the tribe. You were the faceless. You were maybe not faceless, but you were the tribe in a lot of early situations.
Okay, watch all the communist feminists rage at you for suggesting
thing, dude,
that we go back to the Neanderthal ways.
I don't have a made-up person in my head. What I'm trying to say is early on, when life was hard, it wasn't about getting ahead. There was no getting ahead, dude. If your tribe, your group, if your living thing, the people that you supported to live with each other were not strong, you all died. So there wasn't a lot of these things.
Now, I would say in the family unit,
but
it was
like,
closer to a collectivist
even like when we lived in these more kind of like
than within the tribe.
Dude, it's just like capitalism. Just the way human beings live now is a product of being able to do a million things we couldn't do back then. Is my larger point, right? I guess there was some small communal things, but like yeah, like a lot of these like tribal communities, how they lived. Like everyone did what they had to do to keep everything going. Like everyone didn't just hunt because hunting paid the best. You know what I mean? Like you kind of had to do what you were good at.
I would say that was before the invention of money, even. Okay.
Yeah, no, see, I'm not talking hunter-gatherers. I'm talking about, like, early, like, agricultural communities.
Okay, we gotta go.
When we started building, like, permanent communities. Like, dude, if, like, your village couldn't, like, supply enough food, and it didn't always, food and stuff, like, especially talking about a place to live in harsh winters, but it's like, yeah, if, like, you guys can't... Here's something else. Like, if everyone lives in the same general area and, like, one guy's farm's working, people that were smart back then realized something, right? Yeah. If you live in a group of people, and only one person's farm's doing well, you could either share it, help them, or they'll all kill you and take your food.
Yeah, well, but Yarenios brings up an interesting point. So, like, a lot of it was kind of,
like, forced, where it was like, let's just work together so we don't kill each other.
And I would want to see her data that backs this up, because one of the things I loved studying when I was in college was anthropology, but she said tribes were only 50 to 100 people before the Neolithic period. And that's why I said, I think what you're describing is more a family unit.
Yeah, no, sorry. Tribe was the wrong word. No, but I'm describing, like, even early cities. But I guess I'm trying to describe more as, like...
Okay.
I use tribe as the wrong word. Like, if you look... And it's not even that long ago. You look at how the settlers were forced to live in America when they landed. But you even go back further to some of these big cities. It was like... Dude, like, they used to... Like, bread rations, distributing food to people was a thing cities would do. Like, this was, like, this idea that life was a struggle... And, like, just, like, we couldn't trivialize enough of life back then for you to just kind of be able to go about your own thing. And, like, everyone kind of chipped in a little bit in a lot of these old cities. They really did. Maybe saying it's, like, just like communism will trigger communists. I'm not trying to say it's literally just communism. But this idea that a structure where people contribute to the top and then is distributed more evenly from the top down, things like that kind of existed. Maybe not structured in the same way. Exactly. We weren't as big into our heads. We weren't writing books and books and books and books. But, like, you would notice a lot of these early cities were designed to have distribution hubs where, like, they would commune a lot of goods and things they needed and then distribute them out.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like there was no Fed or gold standard necessarily. Maybe there was gold, but it's obviously, I'm getting a little bit vague in it because there's people everywhere, but just like, yeah, like the idea of human beings working together to survive because life was hard was a common concept. But the thing is, with these new advancements and developments, it's harder to convince people they have to work together at the same rate when life isn't as hard.
Okay.
When we might all have a famine and starve, it's easier to get people to work together. That's largely my point. Now, it triggered probably 50 different people with how I explained it. But it was the idea that we should contribute and then redistribute made a lot more sense when life was bigger of a struggle. Now it's just kind of like, honestly, dude, I can just do my thing and get mine and not have to worry about anyone else. Also, it's because we have things like locks and police and cameras and lights. Like I said, dude, back then, if you had the good farm and everyone else's farm sucked, you were going to get, like, extorted and robbed. Who's going to stop them? And they weren't going to starve.
So the last thing I'm going to mention here, because we got to end this here, is there's some conversation going on in the chat about Graham Hancock's work. I think Cody would be down with this, that you couldn't be in politics until you'd experienced 12 hits of ayahuasca before starting, suggests Sly Cactus. And also the Lost Deity brings up a point that I have been posting for eons, but has only started gaining traction now, especially since they found that lost civilization in the sands of the Saharan desert that predates the Sahara itself and dates back to a time over probably 12,000 years ago when the Sahara was actually a lush jungle, and most likely when I believe that the Sphinx was actually truly erected by the first Egyptians. But anyway, they bring up a point that there's evidence mounting that suggests civilization started way earlier than the accepted theories. Yeah, because science, they never get anything wrong. So, yeah, actually, that's my last thought, is to read Graham Hancock.
But it doesn't matter if it doesn't matter. Like, my only point I was trying to make
I think it does matter because I think science
right?
science is the great false priest of the 21st century.
Like, science is just like a word we made up.
The scientist is the great false priest of the 21st century.
Exactly.
And the arrogance of man is manifest more through science than through bad science than through bad religion. And we actually need a return to religion in our lives. And we need to hold, just like we held religion's feet to the fire, claiming God is dead and writing books ad nauseum in the 1890s, we now need to talk how science is corrupted and hold science's feet to the fire. Because every bad idea that America and the West has had in the past 200 years can be laid directly at the feet of a godless scientist.
Well, just like to your point quickly, just like, kind of like that, which I think you're saying. What is scary about that kind of thing is, right, is a lot of religions have in them this concept that you are beneath the God figure, whatever religion it is, right? Whether it's a single God or multiple gods even, right?
I wouldn't say it's that you're beneath the God figure. It's that there is a God figure.
But my larger point is this. My larger point is that priests, generally in most faiths, right, are the way it kind of works is they get the info from the God, the heavens, spirits, whatever, right? And then they kind of work as a conduit to the people, correct? Okay. More or less, right? Like, priests aren't up there freestyling, right? Like, the idea of most religions is like the God is what empowers the religious clerics to have their authority, right?
Okay.
Am I right? I don't go to church all the time, but that's kind of how you look at it, right?
Okay.
Like, your church leaders aren't just run the best campaigns. They're, like, chosen by God. Like, that's the backing, right?
Well, in Mormonism, yeah.
Yeah, but generally, it's like a lot of people. My only point to you is this. It is interesting if you have a totally faithless science-based thing, right?
Yeah.
There is God.
But it is a faith.
There is God.
If science is more dogmatic and psycho than religion is.
There isn't as, the way I understand it at least, in a lot of faiths, it's sacrilegious basically for an individual to step over the line and say they know better than God, right? That's almost always considered off limits, right?
Okay,
because
repeat that.
In most religions, it's considered off limits for an individual to say, I know better than the God or the faith. That's normally off limits, right?
Okay. Well, it's considered prideful, but yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Science is like all about doing that. Science is all about pushing what it was we thought was the limit. Whatever science told us was as far as we can go before, let's go farther. Let's go faster. Let's go higher. Let's do it quicker. Let's do it with more efficiency. Let's do it with more speed.
But that's different. Saying I want to push the limits is different than saying that I am better.
It isn't saying I am better. Science is the tool we use to get all these advances and it's the force multipliers we use to make man stronger than he should be, right? And there's no sense of like, the interesting thing about religion as far as they go is there's this idea that it'd be like, whatever, like, there's a reason why religions predominantly are conservative. That's what we're trying to get at, right?
Okay.
Maybe I'm wrong, but as far as I understood, religion wasn't sitting around and trying to big brain your way around the confines of the religion. Trying to big brain your way around problems there. Like, for example, it's like, how do I actually not be celibate as a monk? Let me just think my way around this. But it's like science kind of is that. It's like, okay, well, right now we actually can't move something this heavy this fast. But what if? 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 You know what I mean? Like, it's an interesting fundamental shift in how you view the kind of thing that you look at as the way the world works. If you think the world is controlled by an entity or a god or a spirit, and you think it's his will and things go within his will, and you're living within that, that's different than you're kind of in this state of struggle with the environment and you're trying to, like, man, and as far as, I'm not a religious scholar, but as far as I understand about religion, it isn't constantly about you trying to supersede God, to get a leg up on God, find ways to get closer to God, maybe closer, but not in the sense of like, find shortcuts, tricks. But science kind of is, right? How can we move this thing further faster, right? Think about
No, I do not think
how do we move the piece of paper from one side of the world to the other the fastest? We figured it out. It's a computer. You don't use a piece of paper, right? There isn't as much of that. Like, religion's more about adhering to your God than constantly challenging, pushing, provoking, and trying to break through
I
it,
think you're describing,
which science kind of is.
You're describing the Marie Curies. You're describing the Teslas and
Dude,
the early work of
how
the
about this,
Thomas
Carden?
Edison.
How about this? What
You're
if
not
we made
describing modern scientists?
No, modern scientists do all
Modern
these things.
scientists are like, how can we give the university the research
You only
results that
see
it
what
needs
bothers you and
because
only think of
it
what bothers
got-
you. You really, Carden, you don't think there's somebody trying to figure out how to use space lasers to snipe people from space right now?
Okay.
You really? No.
Working for Northrop Grumman, Boeing,
Exactly.
and defense contractors,
They
yes.
exist. You don't think there's somebody sitting around right now trying to figure out how to shorten the cold by 8 hours? Just 8. If you could shorten the average cold by 8 hours, you'd make a company billions of dollars. Do you think anyone's just focusing on that?
But I
think anyone's focusing on developing?
Yeah, but people
new kinds
act
of
like
steroids?
but people act like science is this great new better benevolent God, and
never said
anything
that.
can be done in the name of
never said
science.
that.
And science is pure.
No.
Science is untainted. No,
Wait.
it's not. It's subject to all of the exact same
No, but Carden-
market influences, and this is all of the claims that Brett
One
and
second.
Eric Weinstein are
You're
making.
missing my point, though. I want to get to my point. I want you to.
Okay.
I think my point is largely this, dude. Comparing religion and science is, if you want to look at it as like faiths, right? In science, we're always trying to, and it's not because science is superior. It's just the way it's built is here's the world, and we have a car. Cars go this fast. They use this fuel, and it burns at this rate. Can we use better fuel? Can it burn at a slower rate? Can it go faster? Dude, again, sometimes it's making laser beams that kill innocent children in Pakistan for Northrop Grumman. It's not like all benevolent. But what I'm saying is that isn't how religion is. People aren't sitting around like, how can I better weaponize religion? How can I? It's more of a like conservative. It's more of a, so we've built this thing and these ideas and you live within it. It's not, how can I constantly be trying to chip away at the edges and break through again?
Okay.
But that's kind of what science leads to. And again, sometimes it's the worst thing. Sometimes it's poison mustard gas. Sometimes it's, selectively sterilizing people. Like, it's not always good. But what I just mean, it's one of the scary things about it. Science isn't necessarily all bad. But what's scary about it is it really can lead, like, the worst things man is capable of doing to another man almost all come from our scientific advancements, right? It's not if you want to get to emotional or mental stuff, but like physically, human to human. If one human wanted to physically use a force multiplier on another human, science has allowed them to use some insane things on each other. I mean, science has allowed us to do some crazy things. So it's like, it's not all good, but it's not all bad. But what's interesting is the predominantly conservative angle a lot of religions take kind of prevents, like, people aren't constantly, there wasn't this big movement to find out how to like purely weaponize your religion into the most pure spear of all time, But there's people sitting around trying to forge science into the most pure spear of all time in a very specific way and do all kinds of stuff,
Okay. We got to go.
Yeah.
We have gone way over on this one. But it's been good. You are much more kind.
I mean, Crusades, you can say we're bad, but Crusades are also a couple things. One, kind of just what people did back then. So it's not saying that it's good and we should have them now, but I mean, like, they were kind of run-of-the-mill. But also, just getting to my point, they fit into what I was saying exactly. It was people they were just trying to conquer land for religious reasons. That's all it really was. They weren't trying to figure out how to use God to kill people. They were just trying to conquer land for religious reasons. Like, it wasn't noble. It wasn't good.
No,
that
but
they did
I
it.
even push back on
And
saying,
there's a lot
they
of-
were
and
they
there's a
were
lot of
conquering
political-
they
It
were
was.
conquering lands.
Dude.
That's a president's argument.
No,
Back
it's not.
then, political power was
Cardin-
religious power.
Cardin,
It was
back then a king literally gave
the
a
church
speech.
was the state.
No, the church was weakening.
So when states went to war, religions went to war.
Actually, there was like multiple crusades, but like the first,
Yeah.
I think the first crusade, there was a guy who literally gave a speech about going to conquer lands. Like it was about, but he's like,
Yeah, exactly,
just kinda
because
like
the
how things
church
happened.
was the state. And that's why when Thomas Jefferson famously said, there is a separation of church and state in the United States of America, that was considered so revolutionary. Not because the religion is subordinate to the state or because religion is bad and we're going to outgrow it as, every atheist's wet dream. It was because up until then, the church was the state. When the universal church went to war, there was no other church in Christendom. It was the proto-Orthodox Catholic Church was going to war with the Turks.
yeah,
But they didn't mean the Turks.
But even then, like I don't.
They didn't mean people from the political area of modern-day Turkey.
I don't know what your point is. Like, yeah, just like countries went to war.
Is that it's stupid when people say that they make these arguments
Honestly,
about.
I gotta correct myself for a second, though. Actually,
Okay.
there's like these monks. You know what I'm talking about? There's all those weird monks that are kind of like pushing. Their whole thing is like pushing the human body through all kinds of like multiple faiths. You know, they'll fast and like peel their skin off and like try to get into like these weird meditative states and stuff like that. I guess that would be kind of what it would look like when science touches religion, right? Where you're trying to like screw with stuff. Those people who do that. So it does exist. It does exist. I mean, I'm not trying to be universalist in all this. And also, dude, like the church in the states that went back and forth, there was multiple crusades. Actually, as far as I remember, the first crusade was unique because it brought multiple countries together. Because it was like they were trying to find something to bring people together. Because, dude, here's the thing. Like, we look at history and then like you'll miss that like they'll kind of skip over the 80 years when nobody was actually in charge and everyone was kind of standoffish and there was a lot of small skirmishes. They kind of just skip over that stuff, you know? And then they'll just get to the big things. But yeah, like the crusade. I always think it's funny too when people say the Crusades. It's like saying the Crusades. It's like saying it's like that. There was first of all a lot of Crusades. Multiple different people were involved. They were pretty much a massive failure. I've actually heard one theory that the Crusades is kind of what elevated medieval Europe out of the feudal era because so many rich nobles and lords died or lost all their money in ransom that like they're just kind of like was this big wealthy middle class of like traders and merchants and stuff that kind of like buoyed because like there's so many things to go to. I always think it's funny because people obviously from us talking, me and Cardin aren't experts on the Crusades. People always, what about the Crusades? Like, what does anyone know about the Crusades, man? Like, little weird little stories here and there, little sides. It's like, we're talking about the siege of Jerusalem from the first Crusade. Like it's almost like, I don't even, like, it was just like, the Crusades is something we use to describe when, like, people from a certain part of Europe try to invade the Holy Lands. As far as I understand. I could be wrong, but I think it's just a catch-all term for this long period of time where these Europeans kept putting war bands together and trying to like capture Jerusalem and some of the other big cities and then almost always failing or like they'd capture it, but everybody died and then they'd immediately lose it again. Like it wasn't good, you know? Yeah. But it's almost like to me though, if someone would be like, yeah, but what about when the Muslims broke into Constantinople, you know, whatever. It's like, I guess, what does it even mean? Like, yeah, I guess that happened. Like, I don't know. It's just, some of the stuff it's one of the reasons why, again, it's interesting. I'll end with this. The last thing I think is ending. It's interesting. Uh-huh. Saying the founding fathers owned slaves, right, has a million different meanings to a million different people, right? To a modern person, that means something. Imagine saying the founding fathers had slaves in 1896. They'd be like, well, I mean, like, not that long ago, everyone had slaves. So yeah. I wouldn't, you know what I mean? Like, and it's not saying that slavery is good or slavery is fine, but what I mean is it's really just how people react to it tells you about them, not the fact the founding fathers had slaves.
Yeah.
Not saying they were good or wrong. We've said, no, it's wrong now. They shouldn't have. We've decided they shouldn't have. But it's just kind of like weird. It's like, oh, he killed people? It's like, yeah, but like back then, like a lot of like kings killed people like all the time. Like it's kind of nice that we don't kill people anymore as much as we used to. Like it's progress. I don't know. From now on, I'm gonna accuse people who are too critical of who try to like look at history like it happened today of just denying progress. Like, do you deny progress? That's really what it is.
Well,
I just progressed past. We don't do that anymore.
No, but see, that's where I push back, because I don't think that's been a drastic improvement. How has our drift away from a common and unifying God figure and basic Judeo-Christian values improved our society? How has leftist secular consumerism been a better educator, a better cohesive force?
Okay, but what if the
or better for our families, our birth rate, our anything than basic general Judeo-Christian enlightenment?
Okay, but Cardin, I have a question. First of all, Judeo-Christian enlightenment is just like whatever, right? What does that mean? It means a million things. Just general.
Well, we gotta go.
Be more specific. But dude, what if the true meaning of life is to die gloriously in battle?
Then we need to rethink a lot.
There's a famous, I believe it's Spartan saying, with your shield or on it. Come back with your shield or on it. And there's I believe I looked into it a little bit not too long ago, but I believe the concept that came by was the idea that it was like, like the legend, like the apocryphal story was, the Spartan mothers of the dead soldiers rejoiced while the living soldiers held their head in shame. On the point of, what if that is the true meaning of life? I think there was some crazy is the wrong word, but there was a there was a Japanese writer who went crazy about that kind of stuff. And the only reason why I said he went crazy, he tried to stage a coup and take over Japan, and then he killed himself when the coup failed, when he was in the thing. Weird stuff, but he was big on that stuff. What if that is the meaning to life? What if the Spartans and warrior cultures had it right? The true meaning of life is to become a soldier who dies in battle, or to raise a soldier to die in battle. Those are the only meanings of life. And in that sense, what does modern conservative Christian values help us get there? When was the last time modern conservative Christian values led me to dying gloriously in battle, huh?
Okay. I still think that it's, I still think there's actually something that's, there might be actually something to be considered in that idea that what was the first phrase you said? The purpose of life is to die gloriously in battle.
Yeah.
Maybe that's closer to whatever perfection God intended for man when he was made and he was farming.
In 1950s, is 1980s
There's something
America
that rings truer about that than half the other sound bites I've heard all day.
That's what I mean, man. It's they'll get you to fight in the, seriously, dude, are you really going to fight to defend a cycle of life where it's you have a tiny little house or cubicle and you go to an office and you commute in traffic and you come home and you give money to corporations and you die? It's but that's Judeo-Christian values. It's who cares? That's miserable. That's hell world.
That's not Judeo-Christian values. To pay bills and die? Show me where.
What if its implementation into in policy is? When you make it policy, that's the kind of life it creates for people.
No, I would say
the system we have now doesn't create I'm not saying pay bills and die like that, but I'm saying it's a system that's largely based around this market and this capitalist state exists, and you have to engage in it constantly all the time, every single day.
No, it's become more overbearing because it's not a capitalist system. It's a crony capitalist system in which those on top don't perceive themselves as participants and brothers and sisters with an extended family that are all children of God, using capitalism to better their lives together. They don't view their fellow man as a fellow child of God, which is the Judeo-Christian ethos, okay? They view them as serfs, as lessers, as we are the Brahmin, you are the untouchables, we are the rich, you are the poor.
And that's not how our country works right now.
I don't think it worked as badly like that 100 years ago.
Can I ask you a question? Was Donald Trump's America not literally a bunch of old, snooty, disconnected, awful, evil 80-year-olds on both the Republican and Democratic side of the aisle spitting on us and holding us down? Was that not literally 4 years of Trump?
Less than the 8 years of Obama.
Okay.
Yes.
But that's what it was.
No, because Trump literally, there's no argument out there
my point is this.
that Trump appealed to and harnessed the energy of the, quote, forgotten man and woman.
It doesn't matter if God himself was president. That's what would have happened, okay? That's just how the system works. Someone else just turned 80. Fauci just turned 80. Another 80-year-old who rules over us. Join the club of 80-year-olds who rule over us, treat us like peasants, act like they're our barons. Boy, dude, that is why I want a king. I'm sick and tired of having a king, but just being told they don't exist. I'm sick and tired of the barons and the baronesses existing, and they just laugh at us and say, no, they don't. You, like, vote for them or whatever. Yeah, Nancy Pelosi, queen of the ball, just keeps winning those elections. It's like, it's ridiculous, man. We do have barons. We do have baronesses. There is people that just get knighted and just promoted to these levels because they sell out their souls. All this exists. It always have. None of it's changed. And it's just kind of getting frustrating seeing the way they laugh at us. Like that Nancy Pelosi clip. We feed them. We feed them. It's not your job. You represent us. You don't feed us. It's a representative democracy. You represent us. You're our voice. You're a conduit for us. But no, they're not conduits for us. They're the barons. They're the princes and the princesses. They lord over us. They feed us. It's a great way of looking at it. They feed us.
And that's why you think, this is the last thing we'll say, that's why you think that we should argue about being, as I opened this live stream, a constitutional monarchy. So when we go to the table to negotiate, we negotiate as the serfs that they really perceive us as, instead of this euphemized citizen title that you think that we've been given.
Because I think the reason why we don't have a constitution that works anymore is because the Constitution wasn't designed to work in essentially what is a monarchy, which you live on. Not a monarchy, but some awful system, right? There's a constitutional monarchy. There is a sovereign of the head of the state. They do exist, but they have a contract with the people, right?
Yeah.
I'd rather there was a king that had a contract with us than the government pretending they have a contract with us. You know what I mean? I'd rather there was literally a monarchical not even figurehead, a monarchical, the sovereign. We had a sovereign, a leader, the soul of the nation. I would prefer it if we negotiated directly with them instead of the people who lord over us pointing at a document none of us negotiated and saying, well, that exists. We don't respect it or adhere to it, but it exists, so shut up. Like, it doesn't satisfy me. Just saying, well, we have a republic. No, we don't. We have a constitution. We have none of this stuff.
Okay.
We don't have rights. They don't exist. The government just tells you what you have, and it changes every day.
I have got to go.
Okay.
We've got to bounce. But thank you, everybody who has given us super chats. Thank you very much for all of your cooperation, all of your contributions. This has been totally awesome. Go and read some Graham Hancock if you haven't had a chance yet. That's going to be intriguing. And other than that, it's been real and it's been fun. It's been real fun. This is Problem Solver Politics. We will see you.